If I could only think of how to cut you away, I wouldn't be so frightened or scared to be enlightened. It's kind of difficult to keep my mind on a day that I didn't really mind it. It's in my face, I'll find it. The fields of colors bleeding and it's so far from home. The thoughts keep coming forward, I wish I wasn't so bored. Does it really matter if I'm dying alone? I often try to fake it, what's in my face I'll take it. I'm trying not to break it, the timing it was so right. The heaviness is so light, no more or less is coming. The substance stand for something, you keep speaking easy, you really do believe me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Whew. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Oh, thank you.
Deo. Deo.
Baby's got a burger and a shooter and that shake is all go down. Baby's got a burger and a shooter and that shake is all go down. Corrosion to her thighs, erosion of her pride. Baby's got corrosion now, baby's got it.
If it's not Scottish, it's crap. Good morning, everybody. I didn't think this show was going to go on this morning. There's all kinds of little crazy bugaboos. My little crawl thing down there doesn't work. I mean the pit thing with the comments, that seems to be working okay. Although it wasn't working the other day either. And then like when I asked in the chat, I said, "Can you hear that?" I use I use this camera that Chicago has. I can't remember what, the Sky Cam or something like that. And you know, I have to run it through OBS, and so when I do, that means there's no ad blocker. That means some ads will pop up during the thing. So I have to be very careful not to show it too often, you know, show it too long while I'm getting set up and making sure everything's rolling on the other channel. That's what it is. So behind the scenes, when it says preparing live stream, I'm checking all the channels to make sure the shit's up, right? Because that's what Daddy does. And then sometimes you get blah, 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 blah. So usually I have that thing muted in case there is a commercial that comes on. And a commercial did come on during the countdown. I was like, oh shit, I hope they didn't hear that. What's going on with this shit? Anyway, it's fine. Everything's good. Good enough. So I don't even have my sponsor this morning because I didn't even have time to do that. So I'll just say that the sponsors temporarily dropped me because this show is too highbrow for for fake coffee. Oh, this is why Daddy gets high. Anyway, hi everybody. We're on YouTube, Rumble, and the Book of Faces. We got our lurkers over there on Rumble. Good to know that you're there. We got Mystery in the house. Yes, he was referenced in that movie, So I Married an Axe Murderer. So if you haven't seen that movie, it's quite fun with Mike Myers in it. You know, Grinch. No, he's not Grinch. He's oh my God. Who is he? Who's the fuck it. I don't even know anymore. What's up, Laine? Good to see you. We had a great show on Wednesday for the Undercurrent. Make sure you're tuning in for that. It's on Wednesdays, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific time, on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and Instagram too. So we got Chuck's Intergalactic UFO Show Intergalactic, another dimension, another dimension. CBC voter, what's up? Good to see you too, my friend. Yes. There's the obligatory link to Linktree. Okay. All right. So, yeah, like I said, this morning has, this morning has been fun. So after the show, after I do the Substack, I got to go in there and see, hey, why doesn't this shit work? Nomen nudum, not nodum, nomen 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 nudum nudum. No, nomen nudum, nomen. That's just fun to say. Nomen nudum. Nomen nudum. What happened? Anyway, we got way too much news for you today. Fuck it. Let's get started. Government's open, sorta. If you're into that sort of thing.
The U.S. government is finally back open, but the fallout continues.
It costs about $15 billion a week, and it accumulates to maybe 1.5% of GDP.
While there's relief for travelers,
I am happy that it'll get back to some kind of normalcy.
Flight delays and cancellations are expected to linger as air traffic control facilities staff back up. Thursday, nearly 1,000 flights were canceled due to those staffing issues, FAA mandated cuts to keep the airspace safe, and unrelated reasons. It remains unclear when regular operations will resume.
It's going to take a long time. The problem is that the cascading effect that has occurred during the government shutdown is going to just kind of build on top of itself.
Across federal agencies, the hundreds of thousands of furloughed workers will have to address a more than 6-week backlog of work, from food safety inspections to NASA operations to tax refunds. Federal workers say it takes time to get things back up and running. And the battle on Capitol Hill still isn't over. There are no guarantees Congress will extend the healthcare subsidies set to expire at the end of the year, something demanded by Democrats as Affordable Care Act enrollees brace for premium increases.
It went from $400 that we're paying right now to $1,975 for the same policy.
The legislation also only funds most of the government through January, which means in less than 3 months, the government could close its doors again. In Atlanta, I'm Ivan Rodriguez.
Yeah, so we're up and running, sorta, kinda. I don't know. Probably not. But what does that mean for SNAP? Right? What about the people who are on SNAP? And how are they affected? Well, the timeline for SNAP benefits remains uncertain even as the government is set to reopen. Of course, poor people always get screwed, no matter what. When the government's open, when the government's shut down, it really doesn't matter, does it? Federal government's reopening, but there's still uncertainty about when one of the most far-reaching impacts of the closure will be resolved, and all 42 million Americans who receive SNAP food aid will have access to their full November benefits. Trumpy signed the reopening measure Wednesday. One provision calls for restarting the SNAP program, but it doesn't resolve when the benefits will be loaded onto debit cards beneficiaries use to buy groceries. A spokesman for the USDA, which runs the program, said in an email Wednesday that funds could be available upon the government reopening within 24 hours for most states. If you're on SNAP, let me know in the comments if you've received your benefits yet or not. What's up, Omen? Omen Angel. Omen Angel. Good to see you. Good to see you. The department didn't immediately answer questions about where it might take longer, or whether the 24-hour timeline applies to when money would be available to states or loaded onto debit cards used by beneficiaries. There's been a series of court battles over the fate of the largest government food program, which serves about 1 in 8 Americans. Seesawing court rulings and messages from the USDA have meant that beneficiaries in some states already have received their full monthly allocations, while in others they have received nothing. Some states have issued partial payments, and they were sued over that. States say it's faster to provide full benefits than it is to do the calculations and computer programming required for partial amounts. Of course, yeah, just give them the full amount. At least 19 states plus the DC issued full benefits to at least some recipients last week, as an AP tally found many of them managed to do it in a day or so in the narrow window between the November 6th court ruling that required the federal government to make full payments and one November 7th, the next day, by the Supreme Court that stopped it because bunch of assholes. Jessica Guerin, a spokesperson for the American Public Human Services Association, said she anticipates most states will be able to issue full benefits within 3 days after they're given the go-ahead, but that it might take a week for others. Experts say the states that have sent no November benefits already, such as South Carolina and West Virginia, will likely be the quickest, but there's a complication. 16 states have loaded the EBT cards used in SNAP with partial benefits. Carolyn Vega, a policy analyst with the advocacy group Share Our Strength, said some of those states might run into technical hurdles to issue the remaining amount, which is just ridiculous. Just put the money in there, all right? It's like healthcare. We don't need government doctors. We don't need government shit. You know what we need the government to do? Sign the fucking check, all right? Sign the check. That's it. That's what we do with this. Put the fucking money in there. These people are starving. Jesus Christ, it's starting to get cold, too. Even if there's some clarity that benefits are on the way, exactly when they arrive will matter to millions of Americans. About 42 million lower-income Americans receive SNAP, on average about $190 monthly per person. Many say the benefits don't and aren't intended to cover the full cost of groceries in a regular month, even with careful budgeting, and we'll have some numbers for that coming up here in just a moment. It's worse when benefits are delayed. Doretha Washington of St. Louis and her husband have themselves and 6 children to feed and not enough money to cover the costs. Her husband works servicing heating and cooling systems, but the family still needs SNAP to get by. They had received nothing in November, although Missouri said Tuesday that partial benefits would be issued. Now it's making things difficult because we can't pay our bills in full and keep food in here, Washington said this week. I'm down to 3 days of food and trying to figure out what to do. She's been rationing what they have. Other people have turned to food charities, but are sometimes finding long lines and low supplies. How about that? Bread lines in America. What is it? Are we a communist nation? No, we're not. What's that? It's another word that begins with C. What's it? Ponder. Oh yeah, capitalism. Hey, breadlines and capitalism. Jesus. What's up, Kate? Good morning, dear. It seems like it's been a long time. Good morning. I spent 2 fucking days at city council meetings. Oh, you poor thing. I hope you were successful, dear. Let us know. Wow. $1 trillion military budget, and we're blowing up ships in the Gulf of Mexico. Blowing up boats that for no reason, and well, we can't feed people. The USDA told states on October 24th that it would not fund the program for November if the shutdown continued. That left states scrambling. Most Democratic-led states sued to have the funding restored. Some Democratic and Republican-led states launched efforts to pay for SNAP benefits using state money, boost food banks, and deploy the National Guard to help with food distribution. What, they're not in a major city cracking down on black and brown people? Another group of states used their money allotted for SNAP benefits only after a judge ordered the Trump administration to cover the full cost of the month. The mayor actually listened to us while we called out the wasteful spending. Good. Well, that's Canada, though. That's Canada nice. You try that down here, they'd be like, ooh, Hamas, or you're communist, some bullshit like that. America sucks. The legislation to reopen the government passed by the Senate on Monday calls for states to be reimbursed for spending their funds to run programs usually paid for by the federal government. It's not immediately clear, though, which situations might qualify in the case of SNAP. In the meantime, the USDA told states Tuesday that it would reimburse them for paying out partial SNAP benefits under a system where recipients get up to 65% of their regular allocations, and even states that paid the full amount can receive partial reimbursements. It also said it would not reduce the amount on cards for recipients in states that paid full amounts. Democratic-led states that sued for benefits to be made available said in a filing Wednesday that the late arriving information illustrates the chaos and confusion occasioned by USDA's multiple conflicting guidance documents. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So what else has this shutdown affected? Right? You say, well, the government's back open now. We can do business, right? Well, some people can, but not hemp farmers. Pretty much put us out of business. Uproar after shutdown bill targets the hemp industry. Advocates for hemp on Wednesday decried a provision of the Republican government funding law signed by Trumpy that tightens restrictions on the versatile plant, a move critics say will devastate a $30 billion industry. The new restrictions set a stricter limit on the amount of THC, tetrahydrocannabinol, the psychoactive chemical in cannabis, in order to close a loophole that allowed for the sale of unregulated food and beverages containing intoxicating hemp-derived compounds. Delicious. 22 Democratic senators, including advocates for legal, recreational, or medical marijuana, joined almost all Republicans in voting against an amendment introduced by Senator Rand Paul to strip out the restrictions from the final bill. Senator Ted Cruz was the only other Republican to back Paul's efforts. What the hell? So these are the 20 Democratic senators who voted to keep a hemp ban in the final bill. So there's Brooks, Blunt, Rochester, Cantwell, Coons, Cortez Masto, Duckworth. That's Tammy Duckworth right here in Illinois. Dick Durbin, too. John Fetterman, Kristen Gillibrand, Maggie Hassan. I don't know who the rest of these are. Heinrich, Hirono, Kim, King. I guess that's Angus King. Lou Jean, Patty Murray, Padilla, Reed, Rosen, Adam Schiff, Janine Shaheen, The Dancing Machine, Slotkin, Van Hollen. That's Chris Van Hollen. Mark Warner, and somebody, I can't remember Whitehouse. Jerry Whitehouse, John Whitehouse, Billy, Pete. I don't know. Our industry is being used as a pawn as leaders work to reopen the government. Jonathan Miller, general counsel for the U.S. Hemp Roundtable, an industry group, warned ahead of the vote. Recriminalizing hemp will force American farmers and businesses to close and disrupt the well-being of countless Americans who depend on hemp. Hemp, which is used in a wide range of products from clothing to construction materials to fuel, food, and biodegradable plastics, was legalized under the 2018 Farm Bill signed by Trumpy during his first term. But lawmakers, including Senator Mitch McConnell, the Turtle, who backed the 2018 legislation, argued that cannabis companies are exploiting a loophole in the Farm Bill to legally manufacture products with enough THC to get consumers high. Okay. Paul, however, ripped the provision, arguing in a Thursday Courier Journal opinion piece that it destroys the livelihood of hemp farmers. This could not come at a worse time for our farmers, Paul wrote. Costs have increased while prices for crops have declined. Farm bankruptcies are rising. For many farmers, planting hemp offered them a lifeline, he continued. Hemp can be used for textiles, rope, insulation, composite wood, paper, grain, and in CBD products. And growing hemp helped farmers to mitigate the losses they endured during this season of hardship, which we're all enduring. Wesley, good to see you, my friend. Good morning to you. And Steve Wolfbrand, the best radio name on the internet. Good to see you, my friend. Paul noted that the provision that was inserted into the government funding bill makes illegal any hemp product that contains more than 0.4 milligrams of THC per container. That would be nearly 100% of hemp products currently sold, he said. This is so low that it takes away any of the benefit of the current products intended to manage pain or other conditions. Charles and Linda Gill have grown hemp on their family farm in Bodenham, Maine, since the plant was legalized in 2018. We're not in the business of these intoxicating hemp products on the market, which are the ones that are screwing it up for everybody. Well, it's not them screwing it up for everybody. It's the freaking government, but whatever. Charles Gill told Maine Morning Star's Emma Davis on Wednesday they're abusing the system. All our current products would be banned, Gill said, of the new restrictions. It would pretty much put us out of business. Hemp defenders vowed to contest the new law. The fight isn't over, Hemp Industry and Farmers of America Executive Director Brian Swenson said on the tweeters after the law's passage. In 2018, Trump and Congress legalized hemp, delivering more jobs and opportunities to American farmers and small businesses, he said, adding that the restrictions will devastate American farmers, business owners, veterans, and seniors. The hemp ban will also open up dangerous black markets for hemp and allow China to take over the entire hemp market, he said. It kills over 325,000 American jobs and destroys the industry. So just kind of put this in perspective. It's if you have legal cannabis dispensaries in your state, those are not affected. But if you go to like a liquor store or maybe a corner store or something, and they have like I think, what do they call it, Delta 9 or Delta 8? I think Delta 9 is the low THC level stuff where you can buy like gummies and stuff like that at your local corner store, or like the drinks with the THC in there. Those are the ones that are affected. But still, a lot of people depend on those now, have come to become dependent on, not addicted, but dependent on THC and CBD remedies, because the cost of healthcare is so damn high that they have to do their own home remedies, or at least home preventative healthcare. And that's part of their regime. And if you take that away, that's pretty much it. Max RJ, what's up going on? What's going on with you today? I think you're wrong. I could be wrong. Who are you talking to? Anyway, but yeah, so it's going to take a year for this to all happen. So there's pretty sure there's going to be a lot of litigation. There's a lot of money riding on this, especially like for farmers who desperately needed this. This is like some of this stuff kind of saved their business, saved their farms. And now without it, it's not going to happen. We'll see. Meanwhile, guess what? You're paying lots and lots of more for food than you were last year. I know, surprise, shocking, right? But here's what we're talking about. Under Trump, inflation is costing average U.S. family $700 more per month. Democrats on the Congressional Joint Economic Committee, speaking of THC, see how we did it, released a report Thursday detailing how much more the average American family in every U.S. state is having to spend monthly to cover the rising costs of food, shelter, energy, and other necessities under the leadership of Don Juan Trumpy. The panel released its report on the same day the Trump administration was supposed to publish the October Consumer Price Index data. The closely watched CPI report was delayed by the shutdown, and the Trump White House said Wednesday that it's likely the figures will never be released. Oh, why not? Come on, Trumpy. Let's see those numbers. Deploying the same methodology that Republicans used to track cost increases under former President Joe Biden, JEC Democrats found that the average U.S. family is spending roughly $700 more per month on basic items since Trump took office in January, pledging to bring prices way down. He meant to say way up. That's what he down is up is. While Trump claimed that he would bring down prices, the reality is that Americans have seen their costs soar even higher since he took office, said Senator Maggie Hassan, Democrat out of New Hampshire, the JEC's ranking member. As families across the country spend more to pay their bills and put food on the table, Democrats and Republicans should be working together to lower costs. Instead, Trumpy is pushing ahead with reckless tariffs that continue to fuel inflation and drive prices even higher. In some states, including Alaska, California, and Colorado, average families are spending over $1,000 more per month to maintain their living standards as costs continue to rise, in part due to Trump's erratic tariff regime. So here's a list right here. You can see here Alaska's, so you got the state and how much more people have paid because of inflation. between February and September of this year. So Arkansas is only paying $259 more. Here in Illinois, it's $766. My old home state, $577 in Mississippi. Look at this. I mean, you got Oklahoma $269. Well, you know, Texas only $339. I'm very shocked by that. Unless people just grow their own food. Utah over $1,000. Crazy. The source is monthly data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics on the Consumer Price Index, both nationally and in each census division. State level data from the Joint Economic Committee. Republicans on average household consumption in each state. All rights reserved. See your doctor if symptoms persist. The report's findings run directly counter to Trump's triumphant rhetoric on inflation and the U.S. economy more broadly. Folks, pro tip, just assume Trump's just lying about everything. He'll slip in some truth every once in a while, but just ignore that. That's just the broken clock syndrome. CNN's Daniel Dale noted earlier this week that Trump has been on a lying spree about inflation, falsely claiming that every price is down and that everybody knows that it's far less expensive under Trump than it was under sleepy Joe Biden. None of that's true, Dale wrote. Prices are up during this administration. Average prices were 1.7% higher in September than they were in January, according to the most recent figures from the Federal Consumer Price Index, and 3% higher than they were in September last year. There has been inflation every month of the term, and far more products have gotten costlier than cheaper. Inflation not only very much continues to exist, but has been accelerating since the spring, Dale added. As of September, the year-over-year inflation rate had increased for 5 consecutive months. The food is too damn high. The Talking Wombat over on the Rumbly Tumblies. What's up? Good to see you. ExtraBulla mania. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, mania is the key word there. Thought I had a sneeze. You ever do that? You ever like you get a sneeze and it's like, hey, and it just kind of keeps you waiting. You're like, you gonna do this shit or not? Penny for your thoughts. Oh, that's gonna go away. Penny lover, Penny Laine, Penny from Good Times. U.S. Mint presses final pennies as production ends after more than 230 years. Well, you know, that makes no sense. See, makes no sense. The U.S. ended production of the penny Wednesday, abandoning the 1-cent coins that were embedded in American culture for more than 230 years, but became nearly worthless. Well, they're not going to be worthless in about 10, 20 years when people start collecting them. And, wait, and see, this is the thing. I don't know. How are you going to take the pennies out of circulation? Is that how this works? Yeah, I know, right? You're like, come on, you know you want to. The stupid ass Omega stamps, yeah. When it was introduced in 1793, a penny could buy a biscuit, a candle, or a piece of candy. Now most of them are cast aside to sit in jars or junk drawers, and each one costs nearly 4 cents to make. Thanks, inflation. God bless America. We're going to have to save and we're going to save the taxpayers $56 million, Treasurer Brandon Beach said at the U.S. Mint in Philadelphia before hitting a button to strike the final penny. The coins were then carefully placed on a tray for journalists to see. The last few pennies were to be auctioned off, of course, making money off of pennies. Billions of pennies are still in circulation and will remain legal tender, but new ones will no longer be made. The last U.S. coin to be discontinued was the half cent in 1857, Beach said. Yeah. Most penny production ended over the summer, officials said. During the final pressing, workers at the mint stood quietly on the factory floor as if bidding farewell to an old friend. When the last coins emerged, the men and women broke into applause and cheered one another. It's an emotional day, said Clayton Crotty, who has worked at the Mint for 15 years, but it's not unexpected. Trumpy ordered the penny's demise as costs climbed and the 1 cent valuation became virtually obsolete. It's the beginning of the cashless society, y'all. They're taking away the pennies. They'll take the nickels next, then the dimes and the quarters, then the half dollars. Do they still make half dollars? I don't know if they do or not. They'll take away the dollar coins, and then the dollar, the 5, the 10, the 20, the 50, the 100, and then everything's digital. Far too long, the U.S. has minted pennies, which literally cost us more than 2 cents, Trump wrote in an online post in February. This is so wasteful. Still, many Americans have a nostalgia for them, seeing pennies as lucky or fun to collect, and some retailers voiced concerns in recent weeks as supplies ran low and the end of production drew near. They said the phase-out was abrupt and came with no government guidance on how to handle the transactions, which is, as they say, is business as usual. Some businesses rounded prices down to avoid shortchanging shoppers. Others pleaded with customers to bring exact change. The more creative among them gave out prizes such as a free drink in exchange for a pile of pennies. We've been advocating an abolition of the penny for 30 years, but this is not the way we wanted it to go, Jeff Leonard of the National Association of Convenience Stores said last month. Proponents of eliminating the coin cited cost savings, speedier checkouts at cash registers, and the fact that some countries have already eliminated their 1 cent coins. Canada, for instance, stopped minting its penny in 2012. Really? I think I still got a few Canadian pennies somewhere. Some banks began rationing supplies, a somewhat paradoxical result of the effort to address what many see as a glut of the coins. Over the last century, about half the coins made at mints in Philadelphia and Denver have been pennies. So yeah, look at that, pennies. But they cost far less to produce than the nickel, which costs nearly 14 cents to make. See, here we go. Do they still sell nickel bags? Yeah. Yeah, it does. It costs too much to print it. Well, the nickel too. But that's the excuse they're going to use to get to that digital currency, y'all. The diminutive dime, by comparison, costs less than 6 cents to produce, and the quarter nearly 15 cents. But as prices rise, you'll see that change. No matter their face value, collectors and historians consider them an important historical record. Frank Holt, an emeritus professor at the University of Houston who has studied the history of coins, laments the loss. We put mottos on them and self-identifiers, and we decide in the case of the United States which dead persons are most important to us and should be commemorated, he said. They reflect our politics, our religion, our art, our sense of ourselves, our ideals, and our aspirations. And Lincoln fans were like, look, man, we got to be on 2 currencies. You take that penny away, we're only on 1. Like it's a status thing, clout or something like that. You have some pennies rolled up and just sitting around. I guess I'm in no hurry to change them in. Yeah, I know. They're still legal. They're still legal tender. But I think as what'll happen is as you spend them at local stores or whatever, the stores, of course, put those in the bank as part of their deposit. And then the banks will just get rid of them, I guess. That's the only thing I can think of. But yeah, watch out. Nickels are next. They're going to literally nickel and dime you to death. Yeah, Lincoln is there to commemorate the fake abolition of slavery. Well, I watched a video, what is it, that the Y-Files, talking about like John Wilkes Booth and his assassination of Lincoln. And what would have happened if Lincoln hadn't been assassinated, if he was able to finish out his second term, then, who knows what could have happened. But still, it probably would have been fucked up. Let's just be real. Guess what? You like Google? You like AI? Oh, you don't like either one? Well, guess what? Google sued for using AI to snoop on users. What? Oh, Google. Google has been accused in a lawsuit of using its AI assistant Gemini to illegally intercept and monitor the private communications of users across its Gmail, chat, and video conferencing services, Bloomberg has reported. The lawsuit filed on Tuesday in a California federal court said the Alphabet Incorporated unit had previously made its AI optional for Gmail, Chat, and Meet users, but then secretly enabled Gemini to access those applications in October. The outlet wrote on Wednesday, the complaint alleged this allowed data collection without the user's knowledge or consent. The class action suit reportedly claims that while Google allows users to disable the AI assistant, doing so requires navigating the company's privacy settings. The complaint states that unless users take this step, Google utilizes Gemini to access and exploit the entire recorded history of its users' private communications, including every email and attachment sent and received in their Gmail accounts. Boy, they are going to have a field day with my midget porn. The lawsuit alleges that Google is in violation of the California Invasion of Privacy Act, a 1967 law that prohibits the secret wiretapping and recording of confidential communications without the consent of Major League Baseball. I'm sorry, that without the consent of all parties, the outlet said. Google's Gemini, a family of AI models launched in 2023 by its DeepMind unit, is designed to process and generate text, code, audio, and video. The multimodal assistant is tiered into versions including Ultra for complex tasks, Pro for broad services, and Nano for on-device use. The technology has, however, faced controversies. The Wall Street Journal earlier reported that hackers from over 20 countries have used the chatbot to gather information for cyber attacks. In September, Google was ordered to pay $425.7 million, or as they call that, pocket change, to settle a class action lawsuit alleging it violated user privacy. According to court documents, the suit originally filed in 2020 claimed that beginning in 2016, the company collected data from users of third-party applications, even when the relevant tracking settings were disabled. A jury agreed with the core privacy violation claims, but declined to find Google guilty of violating the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. Oh, just pay a little money, guys. That's all you need. Just pay some cash, yo. Yeah, I like the White Files. I like AJ and Hecklefish. They're fun. They make those stories very, very, very interesting. But yeah, he was talking about the conspiracy that John Wilkes Booth wasn't killed in the barn, that it was somebody else, and he had made it off to Mexico and like other places and died like decades later, something like that. I don't know if that's true or not, but you know, like I said, I don't know. I'm not a super fan of any of the presidents, but it would be interesting. It would have been interesting to see had Lincoln lived to see what would actually happen. Well, if you're wondering about the Epstein files, you may get a chance to figure out what's going to happen here. Yeah, exactly. If you got pennies, hold on to them. Seriously, put them away, store them away for about 10 years or so, if we're still around by then. And then maybe you can actually, sell them or something. U.S. House to vote on full release of Epstein files next week, according to Mike Johnson. He looks like a human penis, like with a little hair on the top. Yeah. The U.S. House of Representatives will hold a vote to force the full disclosure of files related to the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, the allegedly late sex offender. Not allegedly a sex offender, but allegedly late. Speaker Mike Johnson said. Johnson told reporters on Wednesday that the House would hold a vote next week to require the Department of Justice to release all documents related to the disgraced financier. Johnson added that he wanted to remind everybody that the GOP-led Oversight Committee had been working around the clock on its own investigation into the case. I'm sure they have. Johnson made the comments after Democratic lawmaker Adelita Grijalva, who was sworn in as the newest member of Congress on Wednesday, signed a petition to compel a House vote on the issue. The bipartisan discharge petition, a mechanism allowing a majority of lawmakers to bypass the House leadership, was put forward by Kentucky Republican Thomas Massie and California Democrat Ro Khanna. Grijalva won a special election to fill the Arizona seat held by her late father, Raul Grijalva, in September. Johnson had refused to swear in the lawmaker as the chamber has been out of session since September 19th, prompting a lawsuit by Arizona's Attorney General. Grijalva and other Democrats said the delay was intended to prevent her from adding her signature to the Epstein petition. Immediately after being sworn in, Grijalva signed the petition, giving it the required 218 signatures to progress. Her co-signatories included all 214 House Democrats and 4 House Republicans: Massey, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, and Nancy Mace. Republicans have a narrow majority in the House with 219 members. In a speech on the House floor after taking her seat, Grijalva promised to continue her father's legacy of advocating for progressive policies and ensure Congress provided a full and check and balance to President Donald Trump's administration. We can and must do better. What is most concerning is not what this administration has done, but what the majority of this body has failed to do, she said. Grijalva's second act in a busy first day on Capitol Hill was to vote with the majority of her Democratic colleagues to reject the Senate-passed legislation to reopen the government. Lawmakers voted 222 to 209 in favor of moving the funding package to Trump's desk for his signature, ending the longest federal government shutdown in history. Jim McGovern, the top Democrat on the House Rules Committee, had previously said he expected voting on the Epstein bill to take place in early December. Johnson's announcement of an earlier than expected vote hinted at growing frustration among Republican lawmakers, many of whom are facing growing scrutiny from within their own party, Democratic lawmakers, and the American public over accusations they are protecting child abusers. Tennessee Republican Tim Burchett told reporters on Wednesday that he was tired of messing around with the issue. The Democrats have had the Epstein files for 4 years, and now we've got it for 9 months, and it's going to be dragged into a bunch of nonsense. Let's just take it to the floor. Let's vote on it. Let's get on with it, he said. A push on Wednesday by Burchett to force an expedited vote to release the files was blocked for not following proper legislative procedure. In a video on the tweeters, Burchett blamed Democrats for blocking his efforts and accused them of gamesmanship over Epstein. There he is right there. I think that's him. The vote also comes amid renewed scrutiny of Trump's relationship with Epstein after Democrats on the House Oversight Committee released new emails appearing to further link the pair on Wednesday. In one such communication, Epstein told his former girlfriend, Laine Maxwell, who is currently serving a 20-year jail sentence, slap on the wrist, for sex trafficking, that Trump had spent hours at his house with one victim. Yeah, okay. So, the email reportedly sent to Maxwell 2 years after Epstein had spent 13 months in prison for his sex crimes also said, I want you to realize that the dog, that dog that hasn't barked is Trump. It's poorly worded there. It was unclear what Epstein was referring to with his comments. Epstein said Trump knew about the girls in another email sent in 2019. Writing on his Truth Social platform, Trump dismissed the emails as a hoax, accusing Democrats of being willing to do anything at all to deflect on how badly they've done on the shutdown. White House Press Secretary and human meat puppet Caroline Leavitt also dismissed the email, saying they prove absolutely nothing other than the fact that President Trump did nothing wrong. Yay! This administration has done more with respect to transparency when it comes to Epstein than any administration ever, she said. We'll see. We'll see. We'll have a little bit more on that later in the old propaganda watch. Meanwhile, back here, well, we're still here at home. Pete Hegseth announces new U.S. military campaign in Latin America dubbed Operation Southern Spear. Look at that cheesy motherfucker. With a flag belt buckle? Come on. U.S. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth on Thursday announced a new U.S. military campaign dubbed Operation Southern Spear, giggity, which he said was ordered by Trumpy. Hegseth's announcement came as U.S. officials revealed that the U.S. bombed yet another alleged drug-running boat in the region on Monday, marking the 20th strike and the 21st boat the U.S. military had blown up since the campaign began in early September. The official said that the latest strike killed 4, quote, narco-terrorists, a term the Trump administration uses to justify murder at sea. According to numbers released by Trumpy, the latest boat strike brings the total number of people killed in the campaign to 79. The Pentagon has offered no evidence to back up its claims that the boats it has been bombing were carrying drugs, as it has also admitted to Congress that it doesn't know the identities of the people who have been killed. The U.S. has been facing growing criticism of the bombing campaign, which is clearly illegal under domestic and international law, but Exit's statement signals the strikes will continue. Today I'm announcing Operation Southern Spear, Hegseth wrote on the Twitters. Led by Joint Task Force Southern Spear and U.S. Southern Command, this mission defends our homeland, removes narco-terrorists from our hemisphere, and secures our homeland from the drugs that are killing our people. The Western Hemisphere is America's neighborhood, and we will protect it. Even though you don't have any proof that there's drugs in these boats, Heggs' statement and the new military operation could also signal a move towards war with Venezuela. CBS News reported earlier in the day that he was involved in a briefing with Trumpy on potential military operations in the South American country, including strikes on land. What a fucking gomer. Jesus Christ. Yeah. So, speaking of Venezuela, Venezuelans who have been deported by the U.S. to El Salvador, tortured. Shocking. I know, you're very shocked. Yeah, you like that?
She's right over there.
That's a terrible voice. Sorry. Venezuelan migrants sent by the U.S. to El Salvador were tortured and subjected to sexual violence and other abuses in the mega prison where they were held for 4 months, human rights groups have alleged. The report, titled They Arrived in Hell, was published by Human Rights Watch and Cristasol, a Central American NGO, on Wednesday. It documents the transfer of 252 Venezuelans to the CICOT facility in March and early April. The migrants were accused, without evidence, of belonging to the Tren de Aragua gang. Their transfer came from an agreement between Trumpy and Salvadorian President Nayib Bukele, involving the payment of millions of dollars. We're going to pay all this money. Go ahead. You can torture them if you want. That's up to you. Just don't tell anybody. After interviewing 40 of the Venezuelan detainees and 150 others linked to the cases, Human Rights Watch says the abuses were not isolated, but systematic. The report alleged that detainees were kept in solitary confinement with poor food, inadequate hygiene, and daily beatings. At least 3 Venezuelans reported sexual violence. One said 4 guards abused him and raped him. The report says the deportations amounted to enforced disappearances under international law. About half of the migrants had no court sentences. Only 3% had been convicted of violent crimes in the U.S. At least 62 Venezuelans were expelled while their U.S. asylum claims were still pending. Family members and lawyers confirmed to Human Rights Watch. In July, the migrants were repatriated in a prisoner exchange. Washington and Caracas also released 10 U.S. citizens and around 80 political prisoners. Cristasol closed its El Salvador office in July due to illegal repression by the authorities. Right. Yeah. No, we're not doing this. Really? Okay, we have to do it this way. There we go. Oh God, this crap sucks. Colombian President blasts barbarian Trump and halts intel sharing over bombed boats. So we're sticking here with our the global South here. Colombian President Gustavo Petro sat down with NBC News in Bogota on Wednesday to discuss his decision to stop sharing intelligence with the U.S. over the Trump administration's deadly boat bombings allegedly targeting drug runners in the Caribbean and Pacific. Petro announced Tuesday that he halted communications and other agreements with U.S. security agencies over the boat attacks that have killed at least 76 people. That same day, the UK government also stopped sharing intelligence related to suspected drug trafficking vessels. In the fight against drug trafficking, intelligence is key, Colombia's leftist president told NBC chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel in Spanish. The more we coordinate, the better, but intelligence is not for killing. Well, maybe not there. Critics have stressed that even if the boats are transporting drugs, U.S. President Donald Trump's strikes are illegal. Asked by Engel whether he believes the vessels were carrying drugs, Petro said maybe or maybe not. We don't know. They are poor boatmen hired by gangsters. The gangsters don't sit on the boats. Petro is one of the few world leaders who has publicly stood up to Trump. The Colombian leader told NBC, he's a barbarian, but anyone can change. Well, probably not Trump. I think he's pretty much set there. As the New York Times pointed out Wednesday, for Mr. Petro, a former rebel during Colombia's long and brutal internal conflict, defiance is nothing new. Those who know him describe a man propelled by his convictions, a lifelong critic of corruption and inequality who became the fiery face of Colombia's left. The Trump administration has responded forcefully to Petro's critiques. In September, it revoked the Colombian president's visa over his remarks to protesters in New York City, where he was to address the UN General Assembly. During the speech, Petro urged the UN to open criminal proceedings over the boat bombings. Can't have that, can we? You know? In October, Petro accused the administration of murdering a Colombian fisherman in one of the boat strikes. Trump then halted aid to the country. As Bloomberg reported Thursday, the U.S. has given Colombia about $14 billion this century, the most in the Americas, much of it to help fight guerrillas and traffickers. The Trump administration last month also sanctioned Petro, his family members, and Colombian Interior Minister Armando Alberto Benedetti. As Engel noted, the U.S. has also sanctioned Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, even though experts have contested Trump's claim that we have a lot of drugs coming in from Venezuela. The country and its leader are key targets of Trump. In addition to bombing boats off the Venezuelan coast, Trump has sent a U.S. aircraft carrier to the region, authorized CIA operations in Venezuela, and is considering strikes within the country. Maduro has ordered the deployment of nearly 200,000 soldiers and accused Trump of pushing for regime change with his sights set on oil, gas, gold, fertile land, and water. During the NBC interview, Petro was critical of Maduro, saying, I believe there has been no legitimate leadership in Venezuela for some time. However, he also expressed concern about the possibility of Trump waging war on Colombia's neighbor. As Petro put it, he wants to frighten us. He does. Of course, it's all about scare tactics and stuff like that. And guess what, Petro? If they invade Venezuela, guess who's next? First, they came for the Venezuelans, and I said, bullshit. Revised U.S. Gaza, as we go to the Middle East, revised U.S. Gaza proposal cites path to Palestinian statehood for the first time as Trump rallies international support for peace plan. Yeah, we'll see about that. What is this? Okay. The U.S. has submitted an additional revised resolution of Trumpy's Gaza peace plan to the UN Security Council. The new draft includes, for the first time, an explicit reference to the possibility of establishing a Palestinian state controlled by the Palestinian Authority, contingent on reforms of the PA and the successful redevelopment of Gaza. The draft submitted yesterday states that it supports the establishment of the Board of Peace as a traditional administrative body of Gaza to be headed by Trumpy, oh boy, until such a time as the Palestinian Authority has satisfactorily completed its reform program as outlined in various proposals, including Trump's peace plan in 2020 and the Saudi-French proposal, and can securely take back control of Gaza. In other words, never. It adds that once the PA undergoes the necessary reforms and jumps through the necessary hoops and Gaza redevelopment has advanced, the conditions may finally be in place for a credible pathway to Palestinian self-determination and statehood. Don't count on it. It continues saying that the U.S. will establish a dialogue between Israel and the Palestinians to agree on a political horizon for peaceful and prosperous coexistence. The draft also addresses Gaza's borders and the security of the Strip. The proposal calls for Israeli withdrawal based on standards, milestones, and timeframes linked to demilitarization in congruence with the International Stabilization Force's gradual establishment of control in the Strip. However, the proposal adds that an Israeli security perimeter presence inside the Strip will remain, the old yellow line, will remain until Gaza is properly secure from any resurgent terror threat. Again, it means never. This is the third draft the U.S. has made public, the second of which was submitted on Wednesday. The vague wording follows intensive negotiations in New York aimed at securing agreement from Arab states and the international community on deploying the International Stabilization Force in Gaza. The mention of a pathway to Palestinian self-determination is the only significant revision of the draft, much of which resembles Trump's 20-point peace plan. The proposal is said to be the Trump administration's public backing of his peace initiatives, while also garnering international support for the multinational stabilization force. Diplomatic circles describe the American drafts as a starting point for negotiations, in part because they fail to address many fundamental questions, such as the depth of Israel's withdrawal after the stabilization force is deployed in the Strip and the future of the Rafah crossing. See, just throwing little teasers out there. Like, oh yeah, we might recognize Palestine. We might not. I don't know. It depends on how I feel. It depends if I'm being fickle or if I'm feeling pretty. It really just depends. Meanwhile, Israel, like, we need them doing their best. Zelensky over here, as Israel seeks a 20-year military aid deal with the U.S. Israel is seeking a 20-year military aid deal with the U.S. and is looking to increase the annual amount of military assistance it receives from Washington. These fuckers have free health care. All their defenses are paid for by us. Meanwhile, snap, you're going to have to wait for that money. A 20-year deal would double the usual term for U.S. Israel military aid agreements. The current Memorandum of Understanding, or MAO, I guess, negotiated under the Obama administration, was the third 10-year military aid deal between the two countries. The current MAO, under which the U.S. provides Israel with $3.8 billion in military aid each year, expires in 2028. And the Axios report said that Israeli officials hope to have a replacement deal in place over the next year. Since October 7, 2023, the U.S. have provided significantly more military aid to Israel to murder their people, to support the genocidal campaign, same thing, in Gaza and other Israeli military operations in the region. According to Brown University's Costs of War project, in the 2 years following the October 7th attack, the U.S. government spent at least $21.7 billion. That's enough to defeat homelessness here in the United States. Just saying. On military aid to Israel, and another $9.65 billion to $12.07 billion on wars in Yemen, Iran, and other military operations in the region in support of Israel. According to Axios, initial discussions between U.S. and Israeli officials on a new MAO began in recent weeks. Israeli officials are worried that it may be more complicated to negotiate due to growing criticism of Israel within the U.S., including among Trump's MAGA base, and for that reason they have proposed so-called America First provisions for the deal. One proposal the Israelis made was to use some of the funds for joint U.S.-Israeli research rather than for direct military aid. What kind of research? This is out-of-the-box thinking. We want to change the way we handle past agreements and put more emphasis on U.S.-Israel cooperation. The Americans like this idea, said Israeli officials. An Israeli official told Axios, maybe some Americans. The idea is to make the argument that the deal would benefit the U.S. military as well as Israel, but any agreement that involves the U.S. footing the bill for more aid to Israel will face significant criticism as skepticism of the U.S.-Israel relationship continues to grow among Americans, and it hopes to grow even more. There's no such thing as America First tweaks to such a deal, John Hoffman, a research fellow for foreign policy at the Cato Institute, wrote on the tweeters in response to the news. The Israelis want a 20-year MAO and will likely ask for an increase to current $3.8 billion they receive annually. This is the epitome of America last. Israel is a strategic liability. Walk away. Walk, don't run. That's for sure. Meanwhile, And what's that money buying? Well, here it is. IDF kills 2 15-year-old boys in the West Bank. Israeli settlers torch mosque. This is from Dave DeCamp. Guys, if you're not if you don't know about antiwar.com, if you're looking for good news aggregation, antiwar.com is the place to hit. They have all kinds of news stories there. And you can actually, they have like interactive maps there. So if you want to click on a particular country, it'll tell you the news from there. It's really good. Good stuff there that Dave and the guys there are doing. The Israeli military killed 2 15-year-old boys in the Israeli-occupied West Bank on Thursday, according to the Palestinian Authority, as Jewish settlers in the territory continued their attacks on Palestinian communities. The PA said the 2 boys, Bilal Baha Ali Bahran and Muhammad Mahmoud Abu Ayash, were killed by bullets from the occupation this afternoon, Thursday, near Bayat Omar, north of Hebron. The Israeli military said that it killed 2 Palestinians whom it claimed were on their way to carry out a terror attack, but of course offered no evidence to back up the claim or any other details about the slaying. And as we told you about, I think it was on Tuesday, that some of these IDF soldiers had admitted in this documentary that, yeah, it was just, they were just shooting people willy-nilly. It was just, you know, however they felt like. If they wanted to kill somebody that day, they could just kill somebody. No repercussions. The Israeli military said that it killed 2 Palestinians who had claimed they were, okay, back it up. Right. Earlier this year, IDF expanded its open fire policy in the West Bank, which led to an increase in the killings of civilians. I know the yellow line is in Gaza, but, you know, they apply that same ideology to the West Bank. The Palestinian news agency WAFA reported that 3 Palestinians, including a 14-year-old, were wounded by Israeli military gunfire in the town of Izariya, southeast of Jerusalem. Also on Thursday, Jewish settlers set fire to a mosque in the Palestinian village of Deir Istia near Salfat in the northern West Bank. Al Jazeera reported that the settlers sprayed racist anti-Palestinian graffiti, and photos of the scene showed burned Qurans. There's been a surge in settler attacks in the West Bank, coinciding with the start of the olive harvesting season, as Palestinian olive farmers are frequently targeted. The UN recorded a total of 266 settler attacks in October, the highest in a single month since it began recording in 2006. According to the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, that's OCHA. Since 2006, OCHA has documented over 9,600 such attacks. About 1,500 of them took place just this year, roughly 15% of the total, OCHA said earlier this month. The surge in violence in the West Bank came after a de-escalation in Gaza as a result of the U.S.-brokered ceasefire deal, which Israel has repeatedly violated by launching attacks and killing more than 240 Palestinians since the truce went into effect, according to numbers from Gaza's health ministry. Yeah, so let's give them more money. That's what they need. Unchecked Israeli violence displaced 30,000 West Bank Palestinians this year. 30,000. Over 30,000 Palestinian refugees in the occupied West Bank have been internally displaced by the Israeli army and settlers since January of this year, UNRWA reported on October 13th, which was yesterday, amid a spike in settler violence in recent weeks. Okay. You guys are very silent in the chat. I guess you're just listening. That's good. The Israeli army has displaced tens of thousands of Palestinians by destroying homes and essential civilian infrastructure in refugee camps in the West Bank, including in Jenin and Tulkarem. Israel has used tank fire, airstrikes, and bulldozers to destroy buildings, dig up roads and infrastructure, and severely restrict Palestinians' freedom of movement using checkpoints and roadblocks. In addition, Israeli settlers have intensified their attacks on Palestinian villages in recent weeks, as we told you. October 2025 is on track to be the most violent month since UNRWA began tracking settler violence in 2013, the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees stated Thursday. And these are the 2 boys who were murdered. These are kids, man. These little kids. Settler violence against Palestinians in the West Bank has intensified despite garnering little attention amid Israel's horrific crimes against Palestinians in Gaza. The UNRWA statement came after Jewish settlers torched and defaced a mosque, as we told you about that. They wrote hate messages on there. A reporter from AP visited the town on Thursday and confirmed that a wall and at least 3 copies of the Quran and some of the carpeting at the mosque in the Palestinian town have been torched. The settlers graffitied the walls with statements including, "We are not afraid of Avi Bluth. We will take revenge again," and keep on condemning after the Israeli army chief condemned settler violence on Wednesday. Settlers are also vandalized the Deir Istia Mosque in 2012 and again in 2014. Israeli officials often characterize settler violence as the work of a few Jewish religious extremists, despite providing them protection, as they often rampage through Palestinian villages. The Israeli army chief issued the rare condemnation after a mob of masked settlers set fire to vehicles and other property in the Palestinian villages of Bayat Lid and Deir Sharaf on Tuesday. Despite official condemnations from Israeli leaders and politicians, including from President Isaac Herzog, 3 of the 4 Israelis arrested over the incident have already been released. All talk, no action. Over the past 2 decades, about 94% of all investigations opened by the Israeli police into settler violence ended without indictment. Only 94%? That's a low number, according to the Israeli human rights group Yesh Din. During the same period, just 3% of case files opened into settler violence have led to full or partial convictions. Israeli leaders, including Finance Minister and the devil's sidekick Bezalel Smotrich and National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir, the Lenny and Squiggy of Israel, have expressed their desire to violently drive Palestinians from their land and annex the West Bank to Israel, just as they wish to do in Gaza. And that's not really fair to Lenny and Squiggy. They weren't trying to genocide people. They just wanted to go out on dates with Laverne and Shirley, that's all. But they were stupid. That was the whole comparison thingy. So, shocking news. I know aid still woefully short of Gaza needs as heavy rains and winter approach. The UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, or UNRWA, has accused Israel of deliberately crippling its operations and blocking the entry of vital aid to Gaza amid its more than 2-year genocidal war as Palestinians face the onset of heavy rains and winter with sparse shelter or relief. Safeguarding UNRWA's mandate and operations is required under international law. It's vital to the survival of millions of Palestinians, and it's essential for a political solution. UNRWA Commissioner General Felipe Lazzarini told the UN General Assembly Fourth Committee on Thursday, citing recent findings by the UN Commission of Inquiry and rulings by the International Court of Justice, the ICJ, obligating Israel to lift restrictions on the agency. Lazzarini also told a news conference at the UN headquarters in New York that severe funding shortfalls were threatening UNRWA's essential services, urging donor nations for more money so that it could continue its operations in Gaza despite funding cuts by the U.S. We run week by week, month by month. I know that as of today, we will be able to process our salaries in November, but have no idea if or no visibility if we will be able to process our salaries in December, says Lazzarini. Israel has barred UNRWA from operating on its soil after baselessly accusing some of its employees of participating in the October 7th, 2023 Hamas-led attack on southern Israel, which triggered the war. Israel has repeatedly accused UNRWA employees of involvement in the October 7th attack without providing proof. That's the theme, without providing proof. Why are you so close up there? Get on there. Following those allegations, the U.S., historically the agency's biggest donor, suspended its support. In the wake of Israel's decision, UNRWA was forced to repatriate its international staff from Gaza and the occupied West Bank, limiting its food aid distribution abilities. But it still employs 12,000 people in the Palestinian territory, and its services are vital to Palestinians, Lazzarini insisted. About 75,000 people were sheltered in 100 of our premises across the Gaza Strip, he said. We have, over the last 2 years, provided more than 15 million primary health consultations Today, the average is about 14,000 a day, he added, also noting the agency's joint vaccination campaign with UNICEF and the World Health Organization. Uh-oh, watch out for those vax. UNRWA also provides education for tens of thousands of children. In the absence of a significant influx of new funding, the delivery of critical services to millions of Palestinian refugees across the region will be compromised, Lazzarini added. While U.S. Secretary of State Aquaman has said UNRWA will have no role in post-war Gaza in sync with Israeli demands, Lazzarini noted that since the U.S. brokered ceasefire between Israel and Hamas took hold, we have expanded our services. Under the ceasefire, which took effect on October 10th, in which Israel has violated hundreds of times, aid deliveries were supposed to be significantly ramped up with at least 600 trucks a day due to enter Gaza to fulfill the population's needs. However, only around 150 trucks have been entering Gaza daily, carrying supplies that are not sufficient for the 2 million Palestinians that are currently displaced and homeless, said Al Jazeera's Hind Qudri, reporting from Deir al-Balah in central Gaza. There are a lot of Palestinian families who have said that there are no tarps, no tents, and they didn't receive any humanitarian aid despite the arrival of the aid trucks, said Qudri. The lack of supplies, coupled with the onset of winter, is a terrifying nightmare for a lot of families, and especially for those who are living in makeshift camps. The lack of supplies has prompted the UN to warn that the hunger crisis in Gaza remains catastrophic, particularly in the north, where famine was declared in August due to the slow and difficult route aid convoys faced from the south. Trucks carrying humanitarian aid and commercial cargo resumed passage through the northern Zikkim border crossing earlier this week. Israel had closed the crossing, the main entry point into the hard-hit northern Gaza Strip, for 2 months, with its reopening welcomed by Palestinians and UN aid agencies. Palestinian truck driver Abdulkarim Abu Daka said on Thursday that they had loaded approximately 80 trucks and hoped that the crossings would continue the following day to alleviate Gaza's humanitarian crisis. A spokesperson for Gov't, the Israeli Defense Ministry body that oversees civilian affairs in the occupied Palestinian territory, told the AFP news agency that the crossing would remain open permanently. The October ceasefire has provided for the release of captives and prisoners held by Israel and Hamas. Israel on Thursday received the body of one of the last 4 captives held by Hamas from the Red Cross. Prime Minister, the Lord Satan, Benjamin Netanyahu's office said. The coffin was handed over in the Gaza Strip to the Israeli Army and Shin Bet Security Service, the office said. It later said forensic experts had confirmed the body that was that of Israeli captive Meni Goddard, who was killed in the Hamas-led October 2023 attack on southern Israel. Hamas said the body was found in Khan Yunis in the south of the territory. The search for the remaining 3 bodies is going to be complicated and will take time, said Qudri. According to an announcement by Hamas's armed wing, the Qassam brigades, they require more tools, more equipment, more technicians, as the location where the bodies are located is very unreachable. The remaining bodies are located beyond the so-called yellow line, according to Qudri, which are dangerous areas. Yes, that's because that's where they get killed, at this yellow line. The yellow line is a boundary dividing the Gaza Strip into Israeli-occupied and Hamas-controlled zones established as part of the October ceasefire. Israel has been routinely firing at and killing Palestinians venturing to check on the ruins of their homes in areas it controls in recent weeks. Palestinians are eagerly waiting for the 3 remaining bodies to be handed over to the Israeli authorities because their lives are on hold. Palestinians want reconstruction. They want to know from where they could start their lives all over, said Qudri. There are a lot of Palestinians who need medical evacuations, and these won't happen until the 3 bodies have been delivered to Israel via the Red Cross. At the start of the truce, Hamas held 20 living captives and 28 bodies of the deceased. In exchange, Israel has released nearly 2,000 Palestinian prisoners in its custody and returned the bodies of hundreds of deceased Palestinians, most of which were maligned and scarred and crushed. And Gaza's health officials have said many of the returned bodies shown, that's just what I said. Gaza health officials said on Friday they had received the bodies of 15 Palestinians returned by Israel. The remains were delivered to Nasser Medical Complex, according to an Al Jazeera correspondent. This brings the total number of bodies recovered through the deal to 330. Identifying these bodies of Palestinians has been very challenging, said Cordery. Only a small number of them have managed to be identified, as they have decomposed and been disfigured. As a result, it's very hard for families to identify these Palestinians are. So that's why most of these Palestinians are buried without identification in one of the mass graves in Deir Bala. So same as it ever was. No aid going through there. Israel playing games as usual. So you have the U.S. plan for Gaza, but guess what? Russia's got one too. Oh, you didn't know that? Yeah. How's everybody doing those? Everybody good? Orange Whip? You guys are awfully silent. Are we still on the air? I guess we are. Russia proposes its own UN resolution on Gaza in challenge to U.S. draft. Uh-oh. What's this about? Russia yesterday proposed its own draft of a UN resolution on Gaza in a challenge to a U.S. effort to pass its own text at the Security Council that would endorse Trump's Gaza peace plan, according to a copy of the draft seen by Reuters. The U.S. formally circulated the draft resolution to the 15 council members last week and has said it has regional support for its resolution that would authorize a 2-year mandate for a transitional governance body and international stabilization force. Russia's UN mission said in a note to Security Council members on Thursday afternoon, seen by Reuters, that its counterproposal is inspired by the U.S. draft. The objective of our draft is to enable the Security Council to develop a balanced, acceptable, and unified approach toward achieving a sustainable cessation of hostilities, the note said. The Russian draft, also seen by Reuters, requests that the UN Secretary General identify options for an international stabilization force for Gaza and does not mention the Board of Peace, that bullshit that the U.S. has proposed as a transitional administration for Gaza. And guess what? The Board of Peace, spoiler alert, it ain't about peace. The U.S. mission to the UN urged the Security Council to move ahead with Washington's resolution. Attempts to sow discord now, when agreement on this resolution is under active negotiation, has grave, intangible, and entirely avoidable consequences for Palestinians in Gaza, a U.S. mission spokesperson said. The ceasefire is fragile. There is no ceasefire. And we urge the Council to unite and move forward to secure the peace that is desperately needed. Israel and Palestinian militant group Hamas agreed in October to the first phase of Trump's plan in their 2-year war and hostage release deal. That 20-point plan is annexed to the draft U.S. resolution. Trump has ruled out sending U.S. soldiers into the Gaza Strip, but officials have described a force of about 20,000 troops and have been in discussion with Indonesia, the UAE, Egypt, Qatar, Turkey, and Azerbaijan to contribute. So Russia, like, hey, basically it's the same plan, but without this Board of Peace bullshit that Trump wants to head. So, yeah. Speaking of Russia and their war with Ukraine, this is from Libertarian Institute. Good story. Good journalism's over there. Good journalism's, all of them. Kremlin says Russia open to talks, but will continue war until Ukraine is prepared to negotiate. So, Russian presidential spokesman Dmitry Peskov explained that the Kremlin is still open to a negotiated settlement to the war in Ukraine. A Russian diplomatic source said that a second summit between Putin and Trump is necessary. Given the lack of an opportunity to continue negotiations, we will certainly proceed with the special military operation to achieve the objective set by the Supreme Commander-in-Chief and the President, that's Putin, Peskov said on Thursday. He continued, Russia is open to settling the Ukrainian conflict via political and diplomatic means, but with the lack of such an opportunity, when the doors for this have been slammed shut by the Kiev regime, who has problems of their own, we'll tell you about that shortly, we continue with the special military operation. Peskov made the remarks as Russian forces have made significant gains in the Donbass in recent weeks. Russian soldiers have seized Ukrainian villages across the front lines and have nearly taken control over a key city in the Donbass. The Kremlin is demanding that Kiev recognize Moscow's claim to the Donbass and the territory in southern Ukraine held by Russian forces. Putin is also calling on Ukraine to agree never to join NATO and demilitarize, which I'm sure they'll keep that promise. Wink, 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 wink. Kiev says the war will not end until all of its territory is retaken, including Crimea. So I guess the war is not going to end. Additionally, Ukrainian President Zelensky says Putin must be tried for war crimes. Okay. There was some optimism that President Donald Trump could end the conflict on the campaign trail. The president said he would end the war within a day. Yeah, that didn't happen. The Kremlin says no significant progress was made this year and that Kiev had withdrawn from negotiations. What, Trump lied about something? Boy, you never hear that. Additionally, a Russian diplomatic source told state media that Putin and Trump need to meet again. Now, Fingerman's going to show up towards the end, and then he's going to apologize for being late. It's fine. That's his shtick. The leaders on August 15th, and the leaders on after a mid-October, after a mid-October phone call with Putin, Trump announced the two leaders would meet in Hungary. However, the summit was called off after a phone call between Secretary of State Aquaman and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. The issue of a new meeting between the presidents was discussed in this context by Lavrov on a phone call with Rubio on October 20th. The Russian diplomat said the summit is definitely necessary, but it must be preceded by careful organizational and substantive preparation. However, this is only feasible if the U.S. firmly adheres to the Anchorage agreements, which they probably won't. He added, "We are convinced that the practical details of the meeting between the presidents must be worked out in the spirit of understandings reached in Alaska." Yeah, okay. So Zelensky warns of difficult battle as Russian forces press on Ukraine's Zaporizhia. There's too many Z's in there. There's 3 Z's in that word. Come on, y'all. What is up with all these Z's? It's like Nitol. Nitol to help you get your Z's, because they're all in that word. Volodymyr Zelensky visited troops near Ukraine's southeastern front on Thursday, warning of the need to shore up the lines after losing ground in increasingly high-intensity battles far from Russia's offensive in the east. Zelensky, whose government is reeling from a corruption scandal, said the situation near the village of Orikhiv was one of the most difficult on a sprawling front, and that thwarting Russian forces there was key to shielding the city of Zaporizhia. "This Zaporizhia is an important city. The enemy certainly wants it. We certainly have to defend it," he said, awarding medals to troops and discussing ways to get more cocaine. To strengthen the lines. The lines of cocaine. Neither side has made any major breakthroughs on the battlefield since the first year of Russia's 2022 invasion, but Moscow's forces, which control 19% of Ukraine, have been on the offensive since late 2023 and have gradually edged forward. I know, just to screw over the West. I think that's why. Let us put like 8 Z's into this name and let the Western announcers try to pronounce. Sorry. At a time when Russian forces are closing in on the capture of the city of Pokrovsk in the east and bearing down on Kupiansk in the northeast, the newly mounting pressure in the southeast is a worry for Ukraine and its allies. With unusual candor, top Ukrainian military commander Oleksandr Syrsky said earlier this week that the situation had significantly worsened in parts of Zaporizhia region. Roughly half of all Russia's frontline gains in the last 2 months have come around the southeastern settlements of Huliapol and Velika Novosilka, said Konrad Muziak. Not Comrade, but Conrad, like Conrad Bain or Conrad Janis. Pick your Conrads. Muzika, director of the Roshan military consultancy in Poland. Poland's another country with like 8 billion Z's in their name. Although this is not the main Russian effort, Ukraine's shortage of manpower has allowed Russian forces to make tactically significant advances, he said. The push west of Velika Novosilka could potentially threaten Juliopole from the north, he added. So that's just one of Zelensky's big problems. He's got an even bigger problem, I say, as I can't get this thing. Bloody hydra of Ukrainian corruption stretches worldwide, according to Moscow. With just one Z won't do. I know, right? Americans do not know how to pronounce Z. They say Z, and then they say Z, and then they fall asleep like bees. A many-headed bloody hydra is draining Western taxpayers' money through sprawling corruption schemes in Ukraine, Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman and my future ex-wife, Maria Zakharova, has warned, arguing that the latest scandal in Kiev exposes a network far larger than a simple case of graft or grift. Either one will do. In a social media post on Thursday, she described a global structure wrapped around the planet, channeling funds from Western taxpayers to the elites who profit from the conflict. Her remarks followed the launch of a major probe by Ukraine's Western-backed National Anti-Corruption Bureau, or NABU, into alleged embezzlement at the state nuclear operator Energoatom. According to Zakharova, officials in Kiev serve merely as instruments within a broader machinery involving institutions such as the European Commission and NATO, while the real beneficiaries sit in the inner circles of Western liberal democracies. Her comments echoed criticism from Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban, who earlier on Thursday denounced what he called a wartime mafia network in Ukraine linked to Zelensky. Zakharova said the description was absolutely accurate, adding that it was astonishing that Brussels still refers to the situation as simple corruption. After news of the scandal broke, EU top diplomat Kaja Kallas, ooh, Kaja Kallas, what's up? Sorry. That's Kaja Gugu. Sorry. Stressed, I've done that joke before, I know, stop it. Stressed that there is no room for corruption in Ukraine, urging the country's authorities to take swift action. Maybe if you get rid of some of those Nazis, you might be able to do that. Maria missed some opportunities for gratuitous H's in her name. It should be Zakharov. H. I know, right? For years, Western politicians and media outlets have warned that entrenched graft threatens both foreign aid and Kiev's hopes of joining the EU. The bloc and its member states have allocated an estimated 177.5 billion euros. That's about 205.9 billion in cash here in the U.S. to Ukraine since the escalation of the conflict in 2022, while repeatedly pressing Kiev to strengthen anti-corruption safeguards. The latest scandal comes months after the Zelensky administration pushed through a law weakening the independence of NABU and SAPO. Weren't those two of the Marx brothers? By shifting power to the prosecutor general, the move triggered mass protests and condemnation from the EU and the US, eventually forcing the government to reverse course and restore the agents' autonomy. But meanwhile, the IMF is to pressure Ukraine amid corruption scandal. As if they didn't have enough problems of their own. You may recognize the IMF from such places as Argentina. The IMF, which is the International Monetary Fund, plans to engage with Kiev on corruption, the global lender said on Thursday, as a $100 million graft scandal has rocked Vladimir Zelensky's government. I know I say Voldemort, but I forgot. Sorry. All right, Kate. Have a great day, dear. Enjoy your weekend. Come see us tomorrow night, okay? On Monday, Ukraine's National Anti-Corruption Bureau, that's NABU, charged 7 people, including Zelensky's former longtime business partner Timur Mindich, with kickbacks and embezzlement in the Western-funded energy sector. Mindich, described in local media as Zelensky's wallet, fled Ukraine shortly before authorities searched his apartment. The scandal has already led to the dismissal of 2 government ministers. According to the spokesperson Julie Kozak, the IMF will soon dispatch a staff mission to Ukraine to discuss a potential new lending program. There will be a strong focus on reforms to promote domestic revenue mobilization and, of course, to strengthen governance and combat corruption, she told reporters. There's Orban again. We've been saying for some time that Ukraine needs a robust anti-corruption architecture to level the playing field, Kozak said, emphasizing that tackling corruption is essential for Ukraine's Western backers. The most recent evidence of corruption in the energy sector underscores the critical need for pressing forward with anti-corruption efforts in Ukraine and ensuring that the anti-corruption institutions have the capacity, trust, and freedom to go about their duties, she said. Kiev is negotiating a new 4-year lending agreement with the IMF to succeed its current $15.5 billion program, from which it has received $10.6 billion to date. Without immediate EU or IMF funding, Kiev will exhaust its emergency financial measures by June, according to a recent report by Politico. This could force Ukraine to delay salaries for public sector workers, including the military and pensioners, for the first time since the escalation of the conflict in February 22. So there you go, an added angle of discomfort for Zelensky as he's probably looking at striking public sector workers who aren't getting paid. You got to pay people. The scandal in Ukraine has escalated to high-ranking government officials. Former energy minister and current justice minister Dearman Galushenko, German, that's an interesting first name, along with his successor and former deputy Svetlana Grinchik, have reportedly both resigned. Media reports suggest that additional searches are anticipated at the defense ministry, which has become embroiled in scandals involving overpriced procurement. So, yeah. So, Zelensky, the Coke wasn't bad enough. He's like, we got to have more money. The Impossible Missions Force. Yeah, I know, right? It could very well be the Impossible Missions Force they're talking about. Yeah. The impossible mission of trying to rid Ukraine of corruption. Yeah, good luck with that. That's like trying to get corruption out of our government. They're so cute when they're little. Oh, I should have put whiskey in there. Meanwhile, in the fucked up planet, Turkey blocks airspace for U.S. delivery of attack choppers to India. What? Why would you do that? U.S. manufacturer Boeing is reworking the delivery timetable for the Indian Army's remaining Apache attack helicopters after Turkey withheld overflight clearance for the transport aircraft carrying them, Indian media reported on yesterday. According to Indian defense and security sources, an Anantov AN-124 departed Mesa Gateway Airport in Arizona on November 1st with the second batch of Apaches. The aircraft landed at East Midlands Airport in England for refueling, but remained grounded for 8 days before flying back to Mesa on November 8th. The helicopters were unloaded at the U.S. base, and the Antonov subsequently departed. Pressed on why the delivery flight returned to the U.S., Boeing said it was closely engaged with the U.S. government and the Indian Army and was working to fulfill the contract as expeditiously as possible. That's expeditionally. Delicious. The company attributed the setback to logistical issues caused by external factors and noted it has already delivered 22 Apaches to Indian Air Force and 3 to the Indian Army. Isn't that racist to say that you're giving Apaches to the Indians? I'm not saying. I didn't say nothing. Yeah, they should repay. Yeah, because their shit keeps falling off their planes and bouncing. It should be boing. Sorry for the bad joke, folks. That was poor taste. Indian sources said the underlying cause was Turkey's decision to withhold permission for the Antonov to transit its airspace, with alternate corridors still being negotiated and the transport aircraft scheduled for another assignment. The operator chose either to leave the cargo in the UK or return it to the US. Boising. Boising. The same Antonov successfully delivered 3 Apaches in August after flying through Turkish airspace, but this time Ankara did not grant clearance. India's relationship with Turkey has been pushed to its lowest point in years after Ankara openly backed Pakistan during what India dubbed Operation Sindoor and supplied extensive military support. Turkey provided Pakistan with more than 350 drones and deployed military operatives, 2 of whom were reported killed. Indian military officials said Pakistan's battlefield capabilities during the 4-day confrontation were strengthened by simultaneous support from China and Turkey, making it one of India's most complex agreements in recent years. Ankara also took an explicitly pro-Pakistan line through the fighting and pointedly offered no condolences after a terrorist attack in India-administered Kashmir that killed dozens of Hindus. Pakistani forces used Turkish-made Bayraktar TB2, Yeeha, and Songar drones in their strikes on Indian targets. Who's naming this shit? Jesus. In response, New Delhi, not to be confused with the old Delhi down the street, this new one's pretty good, initiated a series of retaliatory steps, with Indian officials skipping Turkey's National Day reception in October. The government indefinitely deferred acceptance of Turkey's ambassador designate by freezing the credential ceremony, and a domestic boycott Turkey campaign sharply reduced Indian tourism to the country. Turkey's got some wild spots there too. That's where like that what's the name of that place, the place they found, it's like this old site that's like 15,000 years old, said to be like way older than the Sphinx and stuff like that. I don't know. Anyway, that's Turkey. Turkey's crazy. So Turkey don't play. So meanwhile, Pakistan and Afghanistan, Pakistan holds Afghanistan responsible for deadly terror attacks. Pakistani authorities yesterday accused Afghan nationals of carrying out 2 suicide bombings that struck the South Asian nation earlier this week, including one in the capital, Islamabad. Interior Minister Mohsin Naqvi told his country's parliament on Thursday that both bombers involved in the attacks have been identified as Afghans, not the sweater, the people. The Taliban government in Kabul has not responded to the accusation. On Tuesday, a suicide bomber targeted a police patrol outside a court in Islamabad, killing 12 people and wounding 27 others. The day before, another suicide bomber rammed his vehicle into the main gate of a military school in the South Waziristan district, killing 3 people. The attack opened the way for heavily armed militants to enter the school, where they battled Pakistani soldiers for more than 24 hours before being killed. Roughly 500 civilian students and staff remained trapped in another part of the complex during the fighting. No group claimed responsibility for Tuesday's attack. Still, Islamabad says Kabul is harboring militants within its territory from the Pakistani Taliban and using them as a proxy to carry out terror attacks in Pakistan. Afghans. I know, right? When you say Afghans, so you think of the sweater. Come on. Islamabad also blames India for supporting the militants. The Pakistani Taliban, formerly known as TTP, Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan, denied involvement in the attacks. We are in a state of war, said Pakistani Defense Minister Khawaja Mohammad Asif after the attacks. Bringing this war to Islamabad is a message from Kabul to which Pakistan has the full power to respond, he stressed. So you have Pakistan and India that don't like each other. Now you have Pakistan and Afghanistan. But nobody fucks with Pakistan that much because they got nukes. Well, so does India, too. Tensions between Islamabad and Kabul have deepened after talks between the two sides collapsed earlier this week. The two sides began peace negotiations following 10 days of intense border clashes in early October. Afghanan... That's for you, Wesley. Afghan Foreign Minister Amir Khan Muttaqi said negotiations failed after Pakistan made unreasonable demands that Kabul guarantee security inside Pakistan. They have Pakistani, not Afghani. Yeah, I know. They just say Afghan. They don't say Pakistan. Yeah, I don't know. I guess they just like fucking with people's heads. He accused Islamabad of using trade and refugee issues as political leverage while attempting to link its domestic unrest to Afghanistan. The meetings, mediated by Turkey and Qatar in Istanbul, not Constantinople, ended without agreement as Pakistan pressed Kabul to curb the TTP, and issue Afghan officials say lies beyond their control. Pakistan also fought a brief war with India in May after New Delhi launched airstrikes on Islamabad following a terror attack by unknown militants that killed 26 Indian tourists in the Pahalgam Valley region of Indian-occupied Kashmir. Yeah, so the subcontinent is having a day for sure. As am I. As where are we at here? Oh, we're getting close. All right. 2 more news items. Cambodia evacuates hundreds from disputed Thai border as tensions reignite. Wars and rumors of wars, y'all. That's in the BIBLE. Cambodia has evacuated hundreds of its citizens from a village on the disputed border it shares with Thailand. You know, in Thailand, you neither win nor lose. Blink, blink. As tensions between the neighbors are flaring, threatening a ceasefire agreed in July. About 250 families from Prey Chan in Cambodia's northwestern province of Bantia, Minche, were taken on Thursday to a Buddhist temple about 18 miles from the border, according to Provincial Vice Governor Lee Sovanarath. The evacuation took place a day after a man identified as Dinai, can't deny that name is hard to say, was said to have been killed in a shootout between Cambodian and Thai soldiers around the same frontier village. 3 others were injured in the incident, according to Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Manet. Both sides blamed the other for what happened on Wednesday, claiming they were not the first to open fire. Thai Major General Wintai Suvari said Cambodian soldiers initiated the shooting, while Cambodia's Ministry of National Defense said Thai soldiers began the gunfight about 3:50 p.m. local time. Cue the Spider-Man pointing at each other meme on that one. The shooting lasted for about 10 minutes, according to the Thai army. The deadly incident is just the latest to raise questions about the Thai-Cambodian ceasefire that went into effect in July. Remember the one that Trumpy was all like, yeah, we made a ceasefire between those 2 people. Yeah, now we can get Thai food again and it's all good. The ceasefire that went into effect in July after 5 days of fighting killed dozens of people and temporarily displaced thousands. Oh yeah, I know now it's Turkey. I'm not writing that shit. I'm writing Turkey like gobble gobble. Forget it. I don't care if I'm pissing off anybody or not. You can misspell where I come from. I don't give a shit. I came from Mississippi, and people do that shit all the time. Earlier in the week, Thailand accused Cambodia of laying new landmines after saying one of its soldiers had lost a foot when a mine exploded on Monday near their border in Thailand's Sisaket province. The Cambodian Defense Ministry has denied the allegation, insisting that the mine must have been placed there during previous confrontations. In response, Bangkok, Oriental city where the city don't know what the city is getting. Sorry. The creme de la creme of the chess world, with a show with everything but Yul Brynner. Sorry. One night in Bangkok. In response, Bangkok called Phnom Penh's response insufficient. Phnom Penh. After saying its soldier was wounded on Monday, Thailand announced that it was suspending an enhanced ceasefire that the 2 sides signed in late October with the support of U.S. President Trumpy. That's where he's bragging. Yeah, love it, love it. I'm such a peacemaker. You're a PIECE maker is what you're saying, as you watch shit blow up into pieces. As part of the suspension, Bangkok said it was halting the release of 18 Cambodian soldiers, which had been scheduled to take place on Wednesday. The development came less than 3 weeks after Trump co-signed the deal in Kuala Lumpur, along with Malaysia's, Cambodia's, and Thailand's prime ministers at a summit of the Association of Southeastern Asian Nations, or ASEAN. We did something that a lot of people said couldn't be done, Trumpy said. The territorial dispute over the 2 nations' 500-mile frontier has lasted for decades, the result of a vaguely defined French border treaty in 1907 At the time, Cambodia was a French colony. Yeah. So more shit going on with Thailand and Cambodia. You've got Pakistan and Afghanistan. You've got India and Pakistan. You have Cambodia and Thailand going at it. Russia and Ukraine. And now the United States with the global South in the Western Hemisphere. I don't know, man. You know, what's it gonna, rocks falling from the sky? Is that what it's gonna take? I mean, I joke about that, but I'm starting to think, yeah, you know, that's actually gonna happen. Wow. Maybe some good news, finally. Australia's first treaty with Aboriginal people signed in state of Victoria. The first treaty between Indigenous people and a government in Australia has entered into law in the state of Victoria after it was finalized and signed. Members of the state's First Peoples Assembly gathered for a ceremony to sign the document on Wednesday evening before State Governor Margaret Gardner added her signature to the treaty on Thursday morning. Jill Gallagher, a Gunditjmara woman and former commissioner of the Victorian Treaty Advancement Commission, told Australian public broadcaster ABC, that's the Australian Broadcasting Company, that the treaty represents the story of the Aboriginal people's resistance. I feel very happy. I'm just over the moon, Gallagher said. Today marks a turning point in our nation's history, a moment where old wounds can begin to heal and new relationships can be built on truth, justice, and mutual respect, she said. Victoria's Premier Jacinta Allen described the signing of the treaty as marking a new chapter in the state's history. It's a chapter that is founded on truth, guided by respect, and carried forward through partnership, a partnership to build a stronger, fairer, more equal Victoria for everyone, Allen said. Australia was colonized by the then British Empire in 1788, with settlers first arriving in what is now known as Victoria in the early 1800s. While British powers entered into treaties with indigenous peoples in other colonized countries, including Canada, New Zealand, and the U.S., no treaty was ever signed in Australia. The treaty, which has been described as historic by the UN Human Rights Chief Volker Turk, formalizes the creation of the Permanent First Peoples Assembly of Victoria. Turk said the treaty addresses the continued exclusion of and discrimination against the country's First Peoples, the result of colonization. The agreement, he added, had the potential to be truly transformative, ensuring the First Peoples have a direct voice in advising and shaping laws, policies, and practices that affect their lives. The treaty process began in 2016 and included the Yurruk Justice Commission, a formal truth-telling body which concluded in June this year and heard from Indigenous people harmed by colonization, including members of the stolen generations who were Indigenous children taken from their families and communities by state agencies and religious organizations. Australia, I think that was going on in Canada too. Australia held a referendum in 2023 that sought to change the Constitution and create a permanent Indigenous voice to inform Parliament on issues related to Indigenous people. The referendum failed to achieve enough support to change the Constitution. The referendum followed after the 2017 Uluru Statement from the Heart Petition, which had called for an Indigenous voice to inform Parliament and emphasized that, I got an itch on my foot. And emphasized that the Indigenous people had 60,000 years of ancestral ties to their land. 60,000 years. This sacred link could not be erased from world history in merely 200 years, according to the statement. So, yeah. So, what that means, I don't really know. Will the Indigenous peoples have more say in the Australian government? We would hope so. So at least in Australia, there's some good news, maybe. I can't really say. Guess what? Chicken butt Keir Starmer helped manufacture consensus for Israeli genocide. You think that happened? Well, we'll tell you about that in a second.
The sharing of biased and
False news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these things they are true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
All right. So Francesca Albanese says Starmer helped manufacture consensus for Israeli genocide. Haircut Jones himself. What? The UN Special Rapporteur on the occupied Palestinian territories has accused British Prime Minister Keir Starmer of enabling Israel's genocide in Gaza, accusing the British government of helping to manufacture consensus domestically on the matter. Speaking in an interview with Middle East Eye's Expert Witness podcast on November 3rd, Albanese discussed the findings of her latest report, Gaza Genocide, a Collective Crime. Yes, it's not just the U.S. that's involved. The report presented to the UN General Assembly last month accused 63 states of enabling Israeli breaches of international law. It said the UK has played a key role in military collaboration with Israel despite internal opposition. The report pointed to Britain having flown over 600 surveillance missions over Gaza throughout the genocide, sharing intelligence with Israel. It also added that the fact the flights often coincided with major Israeli operations suggests detailed knowledge and cooperation in the destruction of Gaza, extending beyond hostage rescue. Albanese added that Britain threatened the ICC's funding under the previous conservative government. That accusation cites Middle East Eye's revelation in June that in April last year, in a phone call with ICC Chief Prosecutor Karim Khan, then Foreign Secretary David Cameron privately threatened to defund the court if it proceeded with arrest warrants for Israeli leaders. The UK is one of those interesting cases where the political leadership has helped manufacture consensus around the war that Israel has unleashed against the population of Gaza, Albanese told the paper. She took aim at Starmer in particular, noting his background as a human rights lawyer. He was a human rights lawyer, really? Which humans? He was more like an inhuman rights lawyer. I heard the current prime minister, when he was the leader of the opposition, saying that the curtailing of essential services in Gaza was justified, that it was in Israel's prerogatives, which is absolutely incorrect from a legal point of view, she said. In October 2023, Starmer said in a radio interview with LBC that Israel has the right to withhold water and electricity from besieged Palestinians in Gaza. He never publicly apologized, but reportedly did so in private to his cabinet colleagues. Ooh, so brave. Albanese said Starmer has used his credentials as a lawyer who is an expert on genocide because he has litigated genocide cases before the ICJ to dismiss that in Gaza there was an ongoing genocide, right? Just like Kash Patel said, yeah, we're gonna get the Epstein files. We got them. We're gonna open them up and show everybody, and then he gets in. There's no Epstein files. What? I don't see them. This is at odds with what he should know, that the moment the ICJ recognized the risk of irreparable harm to the Palestinian people in Gaza under the Genocide Convention, there is an obligation for member states to intervene and therefore not to aid and assist in the commission of what could plausibly be a genocide. She continued, so it's not ignorance, it's willful participation in the creation of the conditions that have enabled genocide, that have allowed the genocide to continue. The special rapporteur further announced what she called the Labor government's move to punish civil society activists against the genocide. She said the recent ban on direct action group Palestine Action as a terrorist organization has created a climate of complicity. I do not dispute that the methods used by Palestine Action might cause damage. I don't dispute that they might trespass beyond what is legally acceptable. But framing this as terrorism is beyond what terrorism is and constitutes. Well, if you're calling something terrorism, obviously it's propaganda, because anything could be terrorism as long as it scares one person. The fact that the government makes a deliberate choice to target civil society action as terrorism or to go after journalists who are investigating the genocide on charges of terrorism while continuing to support the state that uses and practices terror against a virtually defenseless population, creates a climate of complicity. Significantly, Albanese said she believes there is enough evidence to prompt an investigation that might allow national actors to decide whether to bring a case against British ministers. I would also note that in order to have a case before the ICJ, you need a state to take action against the UK, but you can also have domestic judicial proceedings against figures who have authorized certain acts or who have omitted to take responsibility for given measures. So again, I do believe it is about time for the justice system to put itself to work, she said. So, yeah, maybe it's time. I mean, it's been past time to get all of these world leaders that have fed this lie that that Israel is not murdering people, killing children. Yeah, they need to pay for it. And will they ever? Probably not. I mean, let's be real. Unless something drastic happens, and hopefully we'll see that. Meanwhile, British military made at least 49 trips to Israel during the Gaza war. This is declassified UK. I love these guys and gals and all their pals. Britain's Ministry of Defense made 49 official visits to Israel since October 7th, 2023, averaging almost 2 trips a month during the Gaza war. The figures were attained through a Freedom of Information request by the charity Action on Armed Violence, the AOAV, and shared exclusively with Declassified UK. You can go away. They revealed the scale of British engagement with Israel's armed forces during their bombardment of Gaza, which a UN Commission of Inquiry has classed as a genocide. The number of visits is 4 times higher than previously disclosed in the Ministry of Defense transparency logs, which showed 12 visits by senior officials. They included engagements by Admiral Sir Tony Ratican, General Sir James Hockenhull, and Air Chief Marshal Sir Richard Knighton. Labor's Defense Secretary John Healey also traveled to Israel during the war, meeting his counterpart Yoav Gallant months before he was indicted by the ICC for alleged war crimes. Well, it's not alleged. No data is available after July 7th of this year, meaning the total number of visits during the conflict could still rise. In the equivalent period before the war, there had been 93 British military visits. That number remained so high during wartime, despite mounting allegations of atrocities, points to a sustained policy of direct contact. Britain signed a military treaty with Israel in 2020, the details of which have never been made public. That's interesting. The number of trips adds to evidence in a recent report by UN Special Rapporteur Francesca Albanese, who accused Western governments of complicity with Israel's ongoing genocide of the Palestinians. And we told you about what she's talking about. Keir Starmer. She said Britain played a key role in military collaboration with Israel despite internal opposition. Roy Isbister from the NGO Safer World has described the frequency of wartime visits as a moral failing of massive proportions. He said it raises serious ethical and political questions. The government seems more comfortable meeting those accused of war crimes than listening to those calling for restraint. An MOD spokesperson said, as part of the concerted UK effort to support security and stability in the Middle East and to achieve a peaceful resolution following ceasefires in Gaza and Lebanon, we conducted defense engagement in the region alongside partners and allies to de-escalate tensions in the Middle East. Oh, prim and proper! Bob is your uncle. Meanwhile, Aquaman says Israeli settler violence in West Bank could undermine Gaza peace deal. Wait, what? This is not propaganda. This is kind of like anti-propaganda. Man, look at him. He is rough. That is way too close of a picture. Somebody needs some sleep or some water. So this is kind of like a twist. So U.S. Secretary of State Aquaman became one of the few in the Trump administration to criticize Israeli settler violence in the occupied West Bank after reiterating the Israeli president's and senior military officials' condemnation of recent settler attacks. Speaking from Hamilton International Airport in Canada on Wednesday after a G7 foreign ministers meeting, Rubio told reporters that he thought today the comments were very strong by the president of Israel and also by the IDF commander in the area, referring to an Israeli army official. The comments were strong. Oh, whoa, whoa, come on, don't hold back. Or I guess you keep holding back. Rubio was referring to Israeli officials' condemnation of an arson attack by dozens of masked Israeli settlers in the occupied West Bank villages of Beit Lid and Deir Sharaf on Tuesday, as we told you about. The settlers went on to attack the Israeli military and police who were sent in to stop the violence. It's all these people from Brooklyn. Hey, forget about it. I'm taking this land. It's like, it's just it's so surreal. Several Palestinians were injured and their property and land were destroyed in the attacks. Israeli President Isaac Herzog said the attacks were shocking and serious and called for authorities to act decisively to eradicate the phenomenon and to strengthen the IDF fighters and security forces who protect us day and night. And then, of course, they probably went in and just killed the Palestinians because that's what they do. Army Chief Eyal Zamir and senior Israeli military official Major General Avi Bluth both also condemned the attacks. Bluth, meanwhile, referred to the settlers as anarchist fringe who prevented the Israeli military from concentrating on counterterrorism and defense. No, they're not anarchist fringe. They're a byproduct of the hatred of Israel, right? They've been told that this is their land, you know. This come get it. And now they're doing all this shit to these people, and they're like, oh, we didn't tell you to go all ape shit. And you're like, well, too bad. Here we are. It's rare for Israeli politicians or the military to condemn Israeli settler attacks, which have increased to an almost daily basis since the 2023 attacks on southern Israel and the war on Gaza, which has been recognized as a genocide. Condemnations are normally issued when Israeli soldiers are attacked, and the Israeli military has been accused of being complicit in settler violence. While official criticisms pointed to a small fringe, the attacks are widespread. The UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs documented 264 incidents of settler violence in the occupied West Bank in October alone, the highest number of attacks for a month since records began back in 2006. Around 1,500 settlers attacks have been recorded this year alone, while the Biden administration imposed sanctions on a handful of Israeli settlers and settlement-related entities. The Trump administration lifted those sanctions in January. Rubio also said the U.S. administration would do everything in its power to prevent violence in the occupied West Bank from impacting the Gaza peace deal. Certainly, there's some concern about events in the West Bank spilling over and creating an effect that could undermine what we're doing in Gaza, he said. We don't expect it to. We'll do everything we can to make sure it doesn't happen. Yeah, I'm sure. We're going to do everything we can to make sure that these settlers don't do all this bullshit, and yet they still let them do it. His comments came in response to a reporter asking him about whether the spate of violence in the West Bank could potentially endanger the current peace plan underway between Israel and Gaza after Israel's more than 2-year war on the enclave. G7 ministers also released a public statement on Wednesday regarding violence in the West Bank, expressing concern for the deteriorating security situation and said all parties should refrain from actions and statements that may undermine the prospect of a two-state solution, including Israel's expansion of settlements, legalization of settlement outposts, and any annexation of the West Bank. We express our strongest condemnation for the rise in extremist settler violence committed against Palestinians, which undermines security and stability in the West Bank and threatens prospects for a lasting peace, the statement said. The strongly worded letter. That always works. Israeli settler violence continued on Thursday with settlers setting fire to a mosque, as we told you, in the village of Deir Istia in the northern occupied West Bank, as well as vandalization. So settlers also used bulldozers to establish and expand new settlement outposts on Jabal al-Najma in Karayut. Israeli settlements are illegal under international law. Yeah, see, this guy old Sleepy Eye here failed to mention that, oh yeah, them shits is illegal. Sorry, I should have mentioned that earlier, but I forgot. I was going to include this in the regular news roundup, but I don't know. France announces almost $5 billion in new military space funding. So forget it, Chuck. The French are coming after you, buddy. French President Emmanuel Macron on Wednesday announced a planned increase of 4.2 billion euros or $4.9 billion in military space spending between 2026 and 2030. We must fight to preserve this precious asset. Indeed, space is no longer a sanctuary. It has become a battlefield. He said, according to a translation by Google. He said, according to a translation by Google. Today's war is already being fought in space, and tomorrow's war will begin in space. Let us be ready. This will be a condition for the success of military operations on land, in the air, and on sea. Mystery. Everybody forgets his cousin by marriage was a cartel. Yeah, I know. Yeah, everybody forgets. Speaking at a ceremony in Toulouse to celebrate the achievement of operational capability by France's Space Command, Macron said that the funds would support the 2027 launch of the Ministry of Defense's long-planned counter-space satellites. Yes, in addition to what was already planned for active defense, we will deploy our first patrol satellites starting in 2027 to monitor, inspect, and if necessary, counter threats to cats with white stripes down their backs that make them look like skunks. Threats in orbit. These will be complemented by our first space action capabilities based on lasers and jammers. Lasers and Jammers was a great 70s pop band that didn't really take off too well, but they were, they had a couple of hits. Lasers and jammers. Since 2024, the French military has been working on 2 maneuverable microsatellites to spot and potentially take action against threatening satellites in low Earth orbit under its TUTATIS in-orbit test of action techniques against attempted spatial interference program. TUTATIS is a companion to the Yoda. What? No way. Don't put Yoda in this. You in orbit on the Mistrata Agel. Backwards say it. Experimental patrol nanosatellite in geosynchronous orbit effort initiated in 2019, as well as a project known as FLAMHE, FLAMHE, to develop onboard lasers to blind threatening satellites. The projects are part of the French Ministry of Defense's overarching Ares Action et Résilience Spatiale program. That's a lot of French. Macron said that the funds also will support accelerating the development of our early warning capabilities in cooperation with Germany. The 2 countries in October announced the joint early warning for European Lookout. I'm glad they added that European Lookout, so it's Jewel. Initiative to develop, detect, and track missiles, which is designed to contribute to NATO's integrated air and missile defense effort. Germany, for its part, pledged in September to invest $41 billion with a B, in military space systems over the next 5 years. Finally, Macron said the spending would support the French military's Aurore ground-based space surveillance radar. Jesus Christ. I thought Reagan's Star Wars program was bad. This is like Reagan's program on like PCP. French defense firm Thales, now set to create a joint space focused entity with Airbus and Leonardo on October 25th, announced a contract for an undisclosed amount from the French Defense Procurement Agency to develop the new UHF radar to monitor low Earth orbit. Aurore will be the largest surveillance radar deployed in Europe, the release said. The additional funds are in support of France's new national space strategy, which sets strategic and defense capabilities as the third with 5 key pillars Macron explained that the other 4 are access to space. I'm not going to do the voice again. That's too much. Having autonomous access to space is a collective responsibility for France and for Europe. Depending on a major third-party power or any kind of space magnate is out of the question, he said, and what could be read as a nod to concerns about America's reliability as a security partner. This means we must guarantee the maintenance and development of our launch base, the Guyana Space Center, and the control of our launchers with Ariane today and our future launchers tomorrow, which are the main levers for our independent access. Industry and skills. The French space sector can only be credible and even sovereign with a competitive industry. The industrial and commercial model must be rethought from the ground up, Macron said. The battle for skills is also a decisive battle. Science and exploration. Of course, that's one of the last ones. Climate change is a framework for many programs undertaken by CNES, the French space agency, in conjunction with others, especially at a time when some are withdrawing to understand the origin of the universe and so many other key elements, he said. Therefore, continuing to defend science and exploration in space is also an element of sovereignty and independence. So you're checking out science and space, science and exploration. Meanwhile, pew-pews is going on. Cooperation. While citing a wide range of partner countries for France's space programs, Macron stressed the need for Europe to create a strong, unified regional presence in the heavens. Our European space program is fragile. It's under attack by those who would like to fragment it to prevent us from being stronger together, he said. This includes supporting the development of European champions so that they are competitive on the global market, Macron said. To achieve this, we need to move beyond the mechanism of geographical return to competitive markets. Further, he said, it involves each nation setting a policy of European preference when granting space-related government contracts, saying it would be naive to think that China and America don't do the same. This European preference is not a dirty word, and it's not protectivism or protectionism, Macron asserted. The French in space. That's some wild shit right there. $5 billion for that. And can you see that coming? French satellites, because nothing says space like France. Exactly. You probably have, beignets and some sort of snail escargot. Is that what they carry on their spaceships? Escargot? Yeah. Unfortunately, more news. Meanwhile, in Cuba, Cuba accuses U.S.-funded media outlet of economic terrorism, manipulating exchange rate. Cuba yesterday alleged that U.S.-funded media outlet El Toque was manipulating Cuba's informal exchange rate to foment unrest on the island at a time when a plummeting peso has sent prices soaring. Cuba called the black market exchange, calculated and published in real time by El Toque on its website, a farce. The benchmark rate has fluctuated wildly in the past several weeks, but is again approaching a record high, wiping out the paltry spending power of most Cubans in a fast dollarizing economy. Cuba's communist-run government cited publicly available documents in the U.S. to show that El Toque and its editor-in-chief, Jose Jason Nieves, had received U.S. funding and alleged they were profiting by destabilizing Cuba. Jason Nieves told Reuters in a written response to the allegations that El Toque receives U.S. State Department grants to promote access to information in Cuba and to support the U.S. Embassy in Havana in implementing public diplomacy programs. He denied, however, that the funding had any impact on El Toque's reporting, wink, wink, noting that the outlet also receives funding from private donors, companies, foundations, and entities in Europe. None of those relationships influence our editorial line, Jason said. He rejected Cuba's claim the group had subversive intentions or was promoting mercenary or terrorism-related activity. A U.S. State Department spokesperson said Cuba's allegations were absurd, saying the island's government was attempting to deflect from its incompetence and failed economic policies, well, which have been their failed economic policies after a 60-year blockade by the United States. Maybe move the blockade, remove the blockade. Let's see how they do. Let's see how they do. Oh, you want to do that? Okay. Cuba maintains that the informal exchange rate published by El Toque on Thursday at 460 pesos to the dollar versus the dual official rates of 24 or 120 to 1 is manipulated by U.S.-funded interests and aims to wreak economic chaos on the island. Independent observers say Cuba's economic woes stem from a decades-long U.S. trade embargo, of course, a mismanaged state-run economy, and an unrealistic official exchange rate. I don't know about the last two, but the embargo is definitely the biggest thing. The Trump administration expressed concerns over U.S. funding of media outlets this year and slashed funds for many outlets for Cuban news. El Toque in March said 50% of its 2025 budget had been affected by those cuts and asked readers for donations. Some U.S. funding to Cuba-related media outlets has since been reinstated. So, yeah. And Cuba... As I said, let's drop the blockade and see what happens. But, that's not going to happen. Every time I do this show, my head fills up with snot. I'm sure you didn't need to hear that. How's everybody doing? We still here? We still got some time. We still got a few more stories to go. Here's the obvious water wet sky blue story. Trump's disapproval rating jumps to 58%. He looks like he's taking a dump. The approval rating for Trumpy remains at its lowest level since he began his second term in January, according to a new poll. But Thursday's survey, conducted by the news agency Reuters and the research firm Ipsos, found a jump in the share of respondents who said they disapproved of his performance. Gee, I wonder if the shutdown and people getting their SNAP money, SNAP funds taken away had anything to do with that. His disapproval rating increased from 52% in mid-May to 58% this month. His approval rating, meanwhile, stayed at approximately 40%, roughly the same as it was in May. The online poll, conducted over 6 days this month, surveyed 1,200 U.S. adults nationwide about their opinions on top political figures and who they plan to vote for in the upcoming 2026 midterm elections. It found that Democrats appeared to be more enthusiastic about next year's midterms than their Republican counterparts, a result perhaps influenced by key Democratic victories this month. Yeah, but everybody else is not excited. Just the cultists. Approximately 44% of registered voters who called themselves Democrats said they were very enthusiastic about voting in the 2026 elections, compared with 26% of Republicans. Yeah, that's all well and good, but who are you going to run? Who are the people you're going to run? Some 79% of Democrats said they would regret it if they did not vote in the midterm races, compared with 68% of Republicans. All 435 seats in the House of Representatives will be up for grabs next year, as it always is every 2 years, as will 35 seats in the 100-member Senate. So that's going to be a big deal. Republicans currently control both chambers of Congress, but with slim majorities. But Democrats have recently been buoyed by wins on November 4th during the off-year election. The party won resounding victories in governor's races for Virginia and New Jersey, and in New York City. A closely watched mayoral race saw Zoran Mamdani sweep to victory over his centrist and right-wing competitors, some who are the same people. Voters in California also passed a ballot measure that will redraw its congressional districts to favor the Democrats. We'll tell you about that in a second. I think. No, I guess we're not. Never mind. I thought I had that in there. So voters in California passed a ballot measure that will redraw its congressional districts to favor the Democrats in response to Trump-inspired gerrymandering in Republican states. Did I already talk about that? These shows are so long. I just forget. Yeah, they did. No, did we say it? Never mind. I'm out of my gourd. The Reuters Ipsos poll closed yesterday on Wednesday, just before Congress voted to end the longest government shutdown in U.S. history. And we told you about this. It passed in the House 222 to 209. While Democrats appeared more enthusiastic than Republicans in the Reuters Ipsos poll, the survey noted that the two parties appeared to be evenly matched in voter intention moving forward. When poll respondents were asked whom they would vote for if congressional elections were held today, 41% of registered voters said they'd pick the Democratic candidate, while 40% chose the Republican candidate. And this happens all the time. The narrow difference in those results fell within the poll's 3 percentage point margin of error. So again, they're going to be excited about shitty candidates that aren't going to do a damn thing to help people. They'll just, the old, as my buddy Kevin over at Black Bear News likes to say, the old ratchet effect. It's like any of the damage that the Republicans have done, the Democrats won't try to fix it. It'll just, it's like tick, 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 tick. They'll just stay there. And then when the Republicans take over, they'll bring it back some more. And then they'll bring it back some more. Same old song and dance. Okay. I didn't know I put this in here. Okay. I'm not even high. I don't even know what's going on today. Trump administration joins lawsuit against California's redistricting maps. There he is. Look at that. Look at that agent of evil right there. The Trump administration has joined a lawsuit against California over the state's redistricting effort, which was approved by a landslide in the November 4th election. Yesterday, the Department of Justice, you know those people, said it would seek to overturn California's new map of congressional districts, which was passed through a ballot initiative with approximately 64% support. California's redistricting scheme is a brazen power grab that tramples on civil rights and mocks the democratic process, Attorney General Pam Bondage said in a statement. She accused California Governor Gavin Newsom, a Democrat, of attempting to stifle Republican voices in his state. Governor Newsom's attempt to entrench one-party rule and silence millions of Californians will not stand. That's the pot calling the kettle black. The ballot measure known as Prop 50 is poised to redraw the boundaries of electoral districts to favor the Democrats in next year's midterm elections. That's what this is all about. It has nothing to do with, The proposition was designed as a counterattack against Trump's gerrymandering in Republican states. In Texas, for instance, the Trump White House urged the state legislators to pass new congressional districts that would allow the Republicans the opportunity to win 5 more seats in the House of Representatives next year. In August, Texas Governor Greg Abbott signed the new Republican-backed map into law. So I guess that was okay for them. Republicans also expect to gain 1 seat each from new maps in Missouri and North Carolina, and potentially 2 more in Ohio. Civil rights advocates have argued that the new boundaries in Texas and Missouri illegally disadvantage minority communities at the ballot box. And you've probably seen these too. You've probably seen these congressional maps. You'll see something that it looks like a piece of pasta, right? That's just like, just some weird stuff that's not in. It's ridiculous. And both sides do it. The gerrymandering that should be outlawed. But, who makes the laws? Prop 50 in California means that Democrats might win as many as 5 additional seats in the House in 2026 in an explicit attempt to offset the new Texas congressional map. However, the California Republican Party and 19 registered voters sued the state in federal court on November 5th, the day after the election was held. They claim California's redistricting effort violates provisions of the U.S. Constitution by unlawfully favoring Hispanic communities. The Justice Department has echoed those concerns in its complaint. It argued that California's map manipulates district lines in the name of bolstering the voting power of Hispanic Californians because of their race. In response, Brandon Richards, a spokesperson for Governor Newsom, said these losers lost at the ballot box and soon they will lose in court. Newsom has emerged as a prominent Democratic critic of Trump, calling the president's opposition to California's ballot measure the ramblings of an old man that knows he's about to lose. Oh, Gavin Newsom's probably going to be your Democratic nominee. If either him or Kamala. Oh, boy. Yeah. Newsom has confirmed he will consider a White House run in 2028 once the 2026 midterm elections are over. California's new district boundaries will apply for the 2026, 2028, and 2030 elections. Normally, congressional districts in California are drawn by an independent commission based on the results of a national census taken every 10 years. Prop 50 suspends that commission's work for the next 3 national elections and instead adopts a map created by the state legislators. Yes, what's going on in Texas is bad, and these other states, obviously, with the gerrymandering, and this is bad too. Bad precedent, anyway. In theory, electoral maps should reflect the people who live in a given state. In reality, most boundaries are rejigged by the parties in power in a process called gerrymandering. Yes, legislators in many states determine how the districts are drawn. California's new congressional map aims to dilute Republican voters' power in one case by uniting rural, conservative-leaning parts of far northern California with Marin County, a famously liberal coastal stronghold across the Golden Gate Bridge from San Francisco. Evil Pat Boone with the twitches. Evil Pat Boone. That's a great band name. The Justice Department is asking a judge to prohibit California from using the new map in any future elections, right? Speaking of representatives, is this going to work? So, as we told you, Grijalva signs discharge petition to force Epstein files vote right after being sworn in. I don't really like to do a lot of this Epstein stuff, but this is kind of news. So, after a week-long delay, the U.S. House Speaker Mike Johnson tried to blame on the government shutdown. Adelita Grijalva was finally sworn in on Wednesday and swiftly became the crucial 218th signature on a discharge petition to force a vote on releasing files related to deceased sex offender and financier, allegedly deceased sex offender and financier Jeffrey Epstein. Johnson has denied that he pushed off administering the oath of office to Grijalva to postpone a vote requiring the U.S. Department of Justice to release its file on Epstein, who was friends with Republican President Donald Trump. However, critics, including many discharge petition signatories, don't believe him. So let's go ahead and get into it. So new emails show Jeffrey Epstein scandal about more than just Trump, which is absolutely true. Although Democrats in the U.S. House of Representatives have used newly unearthed emails from the late convicted, convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein as a cudgel against Donald Trump, many observers have noted that the full trove of messages also implicates multiple members of the American ruling class as complicit in a criminal conspiracy. In particular, the emails reveal that Epstein maintained friendly ties with several people with enormous influence in U.S. politics, even after he served a prison sentence for soliciting a minor. Among the prominent elites who maintained contact with Epstein were Larry Summers, former president of Harvard University and director of the National Economic Council under President Obama. Right-wing billionaire Peter Thiel, of course, you know he's in there, whose financing helped launch Vice President J.D. Vance's political career. Right-wing podcaster and former Trump administration official Steve Bannon, and Catherine Rumler, former Obama White House counsel and current attorney for investment banking giant Goldman Sachs. Writing on Blue Sky, political scientist Ed Bermila argued that the true scandal surrounding Epstein isn't just about one person, but a crisis of elite impunity in which the rich and powerful will brush off the crimes committed by their peers, even if they involve the serial sexual abuse of underage girls. The crisis of elite impunity that is ruining our society cannot be more clearly or convincingly demonstrated than with the fact that all of these people wrote all this stuff into an email and hit send, he said. Some of these people are lawyers. The rest are intimately familiar with courtrooms and lawyers in their professional lives. They didn't put this stuff in writing because they're naive or ignorant. They did it because they have no fear of consequences. None at all. Exactly. Right? Like, you could, sorry, moving the old leg there. You know, remember how you couldn't criticize Israel before? Or if you thought Hamas was not a terrorist, that they would come after you. Yeah. Bramilla's argument was echoed by commentator David Kurtz, who wrote at Talking Points Memo that reading the Epstein emails left him astonished, not so much by the chumminess he enjoyed with elites, even after he'd served time for soliciting prostitution with a minor, but by their flagrantness, their casual disregard, and their indifference to consequence. Kurtz argued that this level of ruling class impunity, systematic of the deep rot inside American political, legal, and economic academic institutions. It's the same impunity that got us Trump, he wrote. Thank you. Thank you. Trump is a symptom. He's not the cause. He's a symptom of a disease of rot. Old Gav's got a stinky finger there. Like Epstein, Trump built a career on a transactional chumminess, mutual self-indulgence, and an alarmingly high tolerance level for misbehavior by the layers of political, business, media, and cultural elites surrounding him. Leah Greenberg, co-director of Indivisible, shared Kurtz's essay on her Blue Sky account and declared the Epstein scandal a story about total elite impunity, how the wealthy and powerful operate with a set of rules totally unrecognizable to the rest of us. Thanks for finally coming around, folks. MSNBC host Chris Hayes also thought the Epstein email showed American elites in an unflattering light, and he observed on Blue Sky that many of Epstein's correspondents showered him with fawning and flattery, even though he comes across as a pompous, subliterate lech. Lots of people say that's because he's blackmailing them, but I don't think he's blackmailing Kathy Rumler, Hayes wrote. I don't think that's what explains it. I think the banal answer is he's very rich and powerful and good at networking, and this is how people act around very rich and powerful people. Well, I mean, two things can be correct at the same time. He could be blackmailing her, too, for other reasons. Although Epstein was only ever criminally convicted on one charge of soliciting a minor in 2008, he was subsequently indicted in 2019 on charges of engaging in a broad sex trafficking conspiracy involving dozens of teenage girls. Epstein would die in prison before he could face trial for these charges. Well, he would allegedly die in prison. I'm going to keep saying that. I don't think he's dead. For these charges, and law enforcement officials would subsequently claim that he took his own life, which is bullshit. Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's longtime accomplice, is currently serving a cushy 20-year prison sentence for her role in helping that evil shit. So, yeah. You know, it's all nice and tasty and just like, ooh, these emails, I can't wait. Something's going to be done. Please, come on. It's all fun to talk about, you know, having a justice fantasy, but under the current climate and conditions that's going on, not just here in the West, but around the world, that they're not going to, they're going to release the Epstein files next week. They're not going to do shit. And if they do, it's going to be redacted to all hell and back. They may find a scapegoat like they did with Maxwell, but they're not going to do it. I'm just saying, look, I don't mean to be that guy, but, you know, I ain't going to lie to you either. I think that's what's going to happen. If I'm wrong, that's great. I hope I am wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm not wrong about this. What I am right about, though, is our need to help our friends in this space with our mutual aid. If we can do that, you know, obviously that would be great. Of course, we got the Justice for Aspen GoFundMe here. If you're not familiar, she was in a vehicle in Georgia. They got pulled over. The driver was arrested for having drugs in the car, and apparently in Georgia, everybody's guilty if you're in the same car, which is bullshit. But she still needs your help. If you can help, all the links are down in the description below. Just so you know, our buddy Chanda dealing with a second round as cancer has come back to her, and she has a fighting chance for it, but it ain't going to be cheap. It's not going to be cheap at all. So she can use all the help that she can get. Of course, our buddy Cowboy Kitty, he had updated us that his sister-in-law Natalia was going to be deported. And she needs help with legal funds to keep that from happening. If it hadn't happened already, I don't know if Cowboy's watching or not. But interesting. That's weird. So, you know, if you can help her out, we'd appreciate it. Our buddy NoliDee, you know, who's big on helping people in this space, she could use your help as well, as her place burned down and she's looking to raise money to try and get back on I was going to say back on her feet, but she's in a wheelchair. That would have been a horrible thing to say. She's trying to get back on track and, you know, try and get her life back together. She's a sweet girl too. I love Noli to death. So if you could help out, that's great. And of course, our buddy Kevin over at Black Bear News, lost his home in the Eaton fire in Los Angeles. He has his GoFundMe, down in the description below. And like I said, if you can't donate, I understand. There's a lot of high prices and stuff. You're just barely probably staying afloat yourselves. I understand that. If you could share out the links, that would be very, very helpful. You know, in lieu of actually donating, if you could share those out, that would be a really cool thing to happen. So. Anyway, speaking of real cool things, coming up, oh shit, I'm not even ready for this. What's going on? It's tomorrow. It's a secret show. You know, with this jackass. We, oh, she hasn't? Okay. Doing silly stuff. I think I'm going to try and change things up tomorrow night for funsies for the secret show. I haven't figured it out yet. We usually play a lot of videos and stuff, but we're going to do something a little different. I'm going to see what happens there. That's tomorrow night, midnight Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific time, YouTube, Rumble, and the Book of Faces. So, so Cowboy in the house saying, you don't think she's been deported? That's good. That's good. So let's get her some funds so she can fight this bullshit. She was pulled over in a traffic, incident that was very nefarious, and you know, she's taken away by ICE, and they're threatening to deport her. It's terrible. It's terrible. So if you can help out in any way, we really appreciate it. So finally today, let's end things with the 69 views. That's nice. On the YouTube. Don't know anybody else watch. I'm gonna keep that number. I don't know if you're fans of AC/DC, but there's a particular song that they have called "It's a Long Way to the Top." If you want to rock and roll, in parentheses, that's the subtitle, and they have a prominent bagpipe solo in there, right? So 374 bagpipers play AC/DC song together to break the world record. Let's check this out. World record smash. And it won't let me go full screen on this, so I'm sorry if it's tiny, but you should be able to hear it. Here we go. I'm
here with Hayden, who's come from Halebury to be involved in this world record-breaking attempt. How does it feel, Hayden?
It's loud, definitely. I was really excited for this event. Now it's over. I'm just still full of adrenaline.
Bagpipe. I told you.
Very tired.
What was it like?
It's just out of this world.
Yeah.
It's one of the best things I've done.
It's exciting, like nothing I've done before.
How long have you been playing the pipes?
Oh, long time, about 54 years.
Wow. And what made you decide to come and be involved?
Well, I haven't been in a pipe band for about 30 years, so it inspired me to practice, so I learnt the tune.
That's freaking awesome.
I went to the 100th anniversary in Edinburgh and I fell in love with the bagpipes. And then my mum's Scottish, so I think it's in my blood.
That's pretty awesome. See, I told you, Mystery. I told you we got ask and ye shall receive. So, an event in Australia saw an ensemble of 374 bagpipers playing It's a Long Way to the Top, If You Want to Rock and Roll by AC/DC, and breaking a world record in the process. The Great Melbourne Bagpipe Bash in Victoria gathered 374 players to perform the song at Federation Square, just a few blocks from where the music video of the Australian rock band's original version was filmed in 1976. Kevin Conlon and Les Kenfield, members of the Rats of Tobruk Pipe Band, who appeared in the original music video, participated in the record attempt. The previous Guinness World Record for the largest bagpipe ensemble was set by 333 pipers playing together in Bulgaria in 2012. If it's not Scottish, it's crap. And I definitely want a kilt with one of those big ass, like, you know, WWE belts that's on there. We were definitely on the same wavelength, Mystery. So yeah, you know, we got the paper down. Bagpipes are just the best. I don't know how they play them. They gotta, like, you gotta squeeze the goose. I guess one of my favorites is was it Star Trek 2? When one of the young crewmen dies and Scotty's got him in his hands and they have the funeral for him, and oh no, it was for Spock's funeral. It was for Spock's funeral, and they put him in the little photon tube, and they shot him out into the Genesis planet, and you got Scotty in the back, and he's just playing the bagpipe. Like, oh, Star Trek. You don't like Star Trek 2 is already a good movie, but then you throw some bagpipes in there, forget about it. Forget about it. All right, folks, that's it for me today. Like I said, we'll be back tomorrow night for the Secret Show. We got other shows today. I know Kevin's coming up. Willie said he's got some car issues that he's still dealing with. God love him, poor guy. So I think he's going to start doing his shows again next week. We'll be looking forward to seeing that. Check out all our peoples here. Kate on the radio, and we got our buddies like Game.film talking about movies and games and stuff like that. But then we also have lots of different other people talking about various things that are important in this day and age. So check them out and support our independent media in this space, the ones that provide us with information, knowledge, and news that you can use. So I will be back with this show on Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. Central Mountain Time, and 8 a.m. Pacific Time. YouTube, Rumble, and Facebook. Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend. We hope to see you soon. Peace.
This is City Alpha 5. Woo!